Hey everybody, welcome to Frame Trap. Today we get a combination that we don't normally get, and I always appreciate those. Normally it's Huber and somebody else, which I love, because Huber is one of my favorite people on the planet. But it's rare, I think, that we get a Frame Trap with Mr. Kyle Bossman.
Hello.
Who's sitting right next to me. And at the end there, Daniel Bloodworth.
Hello.
Both of you, yesterday, we're shooting this on a Friday, and I really do think the day and time that we shoot a Frame Trap really affects the tone of the episode. They're very different episodes when we shoot them in the morning than when we shoot them in the afternoon or evening. And we're shooting this at 4 p.m. on a Friday.
Yeah.
So let's ride that out and see what happens. But yesterday, you guys got to eat a meal. And I want to know if it was a good meal. You both shared it together. You had some lovely conversations. You got to gobble up a Nintendo Direct.
Ah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I knew that's where it was going, but it was like, man, I didn't really get much for lunch here.
Yeah. Are you hungry right
I
now?
thought you were about to expose our secret breakfast.
Oh, no.
Okay.
Are you hungry, Blood?
Yeah.
Never go into a Frame Trap hungry. You might not make it back out. No, anyway, you guys get to gobble up a Nintendo Direct, and I don't want to drone on about it too long, because I know we're going to talk about it on Friend Code. I know you guys obviously digested your opinions yesterday on stream, but I think the day after, you feel a little bit differently than you do in the heat of the moment.
Yeah.
And so, without going into too much detail, I'm assuming if you're watching this, you have some semblance of an idea of what Nintendo talked about and what they didn't. And how do you feel right now in this moment, 4 p.m., 4:30 on a Friday?
I'll tell you what happened in my drive home, and I'm still kind of feeling the same way.
Okay.
I thought about the point of Nintendo Direct. I thought of when Iwata first started doing them and he did the motion of a Nintendo Direct toward you. And then I thought of what we saw yesterday, and obviously it's always been commercials. It just felt like a bunch of commercials yesterday, more so than it used to. It didn't feel like Nintendo going out of its way to directly communicate to you. It felt like... I don't know, maybe it's too cynical, but I just think that Nintendo expects people to explode by just seeing Animal Crossing in development now, and I think that that's enough for them, and to me it's almost insincere. That doesn't feel like a Nintendo Direct moment. It doesn't feel like a company communicating with us as it is a company desperate for hashtags.
Do you think that it feels different than it did a couple of months ago? Versus now, let's say the beginning of 2018 versus now.
I mean, they changed after Iwata died.
Yeah.
But it just not a quick change. I would say. I don't think it was. I can point to anyone direct and say this is when it changed. They're different now.
Right.
I might sound crazy even today to suggest they're different than they were 3 years ago, but I don't know.
You talk about a company that is desperate for hashtags, and I myself enjoyed the Iwata stuff, but looking online, that was some of the most talked about stuff of the thing.
Yeah.
Do you think that was more honest and less kind of going after your attention than what they're doing now?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right. I think it's social media driven almost, and that's why we hear about it a day before it goes live. And that's why it is live. All these announcements live, back to back to back. I think it works. Obviously, I was praising the Smash Bros. Direct, which was last month. That was one of the best things I'd ever seen in a Direct or formatting wise. And so, yeah, I'm not 100% cynical about it. And I'm not like, oh, they're desperate for hashtags. They're obviously doing really well with the Switch, I don't know. Just had weird vibes about it, man. I didn't leave it feeling like it was a warm meal. I felt like it was just like airplane food.
Right. Right.
Well, I mean, one thing you're talking about...
It was inevitable.
Yeah.
In terms of transparency, I remember in some of those older directs, I think it was like Yoshi's Woolly World and like the Star Fox Zero stuff. Like you kind of saw them go a little bit behind the scenes with the developers. And
that was E3. Yeah, that was a really good one.
Yeah, talking about like what they're, what's going behind this and all that. And like for this new Yoshi game, you would think you would see something similar for that. For something like Daemon X Machina, it's like, okay, well, what is this? Who is really behind this? Like, show me the face of these people and like why they're making this pretty much un-Nintendo-like game on a Nintendo console. And we don't know. We just see like more gameplay and like I hope it's good. And the only person that we see has to go through a translator, and so I think that also creates some distance.
Sure.
Do you think part of it has to do with just their position in the industry right now. I think just your attitude and who you're targeting changes so much when you're in the front of the pack versus the back of the pack.
I guess that's true, Ben. You know, your goal changes, but I truly think that this happens to me all the time too. It happens to everybody. You kind of forget why you're doing that thing that you always do,
right?
And so I kind of think that at Nintendo, it's like we need to do a direct right then. Let's just do it. You know what I mean? And you just start plopping things in. You start figuring out how it goes without really remembering. Like, wait, why do we do these? And so I you know, you can't do it every single time, and it will evolve, and it's maybe foolish to lament the old Nintendo Directs because it's all advertising. But yeah. I don't feel good saying it was bad because it was still like a half-hour cool trailers, you know?
Do you think just with the death of Iwata and him being such a key figure that it's also just a matter of time where, you know, that they're still figuring things out, things are still falling into place, and eventually that distinct voice that you miss so much will come back? Or do you think it's just going to be this way now?
It's just going to be this way. It's Ben, it's rare to find a president of any company in any industry who wants to do that kind of thing. Just show up on this online stream and say, hey, everybody, how you doing? These are our announcements. Look you in the eyes, you know? And so I think he was a rare figure, you know, to even want to do that kind of thing in the first place, to want to do his interviews, the Iwata Asks and things like that. You know, he truly cared. He truly, truly cared.
Absolutely. And there is nothing I don't think anyone can take away from Iwata. I stand with you there, but there are other people at Nintendo that I'm attached to, that many people are attached to. I think Bill Trinen can be a very funny guy. Yep. I think Reggie, even during E3, even when he's trying to be serious, he can communicate in a way that nobody else does, and I think kind of hits a chord with people that no one else does. Like there are still key people at Nintendo that maybe aren't quite Iwata, but still have a voice and could still bring that to the table in interesting ways.
Yeah, I liked Koizumi during the reveal of the Switch. That was fun.
Yeah, Koizumi's a good person to bring up as well.
Yeah.
What do you think, Blood? Is it going to be this way from now on?
I mean, I think that this one in particular was a bit more detached. I think the biggest problem with this is, I mean, obviously the reason it existed was to tell people that online service is coming and to make sure everybody knew, and, you know, wedge that in between some big announcements so that people are going to be watching. But it just, there was no game behind that, you know, and that I think, yeah, Smash Brothers is going to be huge. Splatoon still is huge, but it seems strange to me that we're going to suddenly shift from having gotten this service for free to having to pay for it. And when that switch happens, the only thing that really changes is that there's some new costumes and weapons in Splatoon 2.
Right.
It doesn't, you know, we're going to get some NES games that we can play online, and we'll try that novelty out for a night and, you know, maybe never do it again. It's a real weird thing. So
there was nothing done to make you feel more confident about the online service that Nintendo's dropping super soon?
You know what I just thought of when Blood brought that up is, you know, Xbox Live back on the original Xbox was a necessity because of Halo 2. Mm-hmm. PlayStation Online, I would put Final Fantasy 11 there and SOCOM there. I think both of those kind of were at least like get online to play these games. Yeah. And as Blood just said, I don't know if we have that. We've been playing Splatoon Online, right? Like they needed that real hard sell. I think it will be Smash once those modes are revealed or whatever. Maybe, right?
But yeah, and that's the thing. Yeah, even Smash Brothers, it's like, okay, Smash Brothers will be the big online game, but will it be? You know, it's like, what is there about Smash? You didn't show us that. You just showed us a new character.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, it feels like they're doing the Nintendo strong arm in the absolute worst way.
Yeah.
And not only does it you get this sense of, well, yeah, of course you're going to play Smash. There's that sense that's lingering, but also the NES controllers and handling that, I think, is just absolutely disgusting. And so for those who don't know...
If you have an online membership,
right,
you can get the perk of being able to buy these other things.
Right, which are overpriced to begin with, and you can only get them if you buy into this online service. You can't just get them if you think they're just cool novelty things on their own, which I think is
and
pretty
one
gross.
set per account. They're tracking whether you bought it, and they won't let you buy another set.
How does that How does that get approved? And how can you not just be absolutely cynical in the worst way that that's just somebody sitting back and being like, yeah, they'll do it?
Damiani made the case, it was a strong case, that it's to prevent scalping. So people who want one can get one, and people who are just buying one to sell won't be able to. Or buying many to sell. I get that. That might be their reasoning. I think really, though, the reasoning is you feel special for having this account and being able to get these controllers that no one else can buy. It's to make you feel special for being in their program. Right? Wasn't it on the special offers page? No,
I don't know that I don't know that I buy that.
Yeah. I mean, that's the best I can assume.
It's just honestly, to me, that almost screams like I would be just as upset if Sony did this with, they're like, hey, you can only get this PS1 controller, but you have to be a PS Plus member. Yeah. Or you can get this original Duke controller on the Xbox, but you have to be an Xbox Live Gold member. Mm-hmm. I don't think we would come up with the scalper excuse.
Is that thing out yet?
The Duke?
Yeah, I know they're recreating that.
So I've gone through this weird thing with the Duke, and this is probably just my own ignorance, admittedly, before I get into any of this, where I saw like impressions and reviews for this Duke controller, and then I looked for it and couldn't find it, and was very confused.
Let us know. I'm ready to buy. I'm ready to buy that thing.
I was interested in it as well.
Wow.
But yeah, I don't know. That has been a lot of being down on the Direct, which I think is good, but was there anything that really got you like gut excited, where you just felt a spring in your step after they talked about it, or something that really surprised you in a positive way?
Game Freak is making a new game called Town.
Yeah.
Well, codename Town, working title Town, which looks cool. The quickest way I could summarize it is if you've ever played Crystal Chronicles: My Life as a King. It was a whole RPG that took place in your town. You like built up the town. This seems kind of similar. I don't know if we're building the town, but as they said right in the pitch, the whole RPG takes place in the town. So you'll battle monsters that wander into your town. You'll make friends with villagers, and it just looks great. Game Freak, did Tembo. I think after that horse racing game for mobile. They don't often make non-Pokemon games, and when they do, they're not like this. This is a pretty good-looking 3D RPG, and so it's pretty cool. I'm into it.
What did you think of Harmonite?
Oh, Harmonite, I forgot about that one. Did not like Harmonite.
You didn't?
No.
Oh, man, I really liked Harmonite. It got hard for me, but I enjoyed it.
To me, it's like a platformer that doesn't give you a lot of freedom. There's just a perfect way to play every level, and I think that's where I tune out.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, but to me it was just getting that beat down and riding that groove and feeling it and getting in tune with the exact perfect way that they wanted you to do it. Kyle, for me, sometimes when RPGs really focus on like community building or town building, they'll do all of these things that you can't do in a normal RPG, but then they don't nail like the core RPG stuff. Like the combat isn't very good.
Yeah.
And you kind of just have to sit back and be like, well, okay, this is going for something a little different, so I'll excuse that. But I wish there could just be a phenomenal nuts and bolts RPG that does go in a different direction. Do you think you'd be as excited for Town if Game Freak wasn't working on it?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, it has a distinct visual style that is unique to any other thing that's on Switch currently. So yeah, but Game Freak definitely makes me interested.
Sure.
It definitely helps. Adds points.
How was Tembo? Did you play Tembo?
Tembo's really good. It's not great. I really had a fun time with Tembo, but I wouldn't say everybody listening must go get that today.
Gotcha.
Worth watching the trailer. I like it. I like that game.
Blood, was there anything yesterday that got you pumped?
I don't know anything that got me really pumped. I mean, obviously the biggest announcements were Luigi's Mansion and Animal Crossing, and excited for both of those games, but they just announced them in such weird ways. Like Luigi's Mansion was just like, oh wait, that's what that was, and it's like you like had to rewind just to see what you saw, and then Animal Crossing, it is this strange kind of like bait and switch. They waited way too long to put up the not actual gameplay disclaimer and all of that. Like the biggest surprises really was the whole gigantic Final Fantasy suite of stuff.
Yeah.
All of that stuff coming from Square Enix, including those classic games that had never been on a Nintendo console before. That's like a pretty big shift in direction, and it's not maybe doesn't seem like that surprising from an outside perspective because why not? Like Square releases all these games on everything they possibly can, but that hasn't been happening on Nintendo systems. So to see, those particular Final Fantasy PlayStation games.
2 questions quickly related to Final Fantasy. You mentioned My Life is King earlier, Kyle.
Yeah.
Do you think they'll bring My Life is King and My Life is Dark Lord to Switch?
I never thought they'd bring Crystal Chronicles to Switch.
Right.
So yes, my answer is yes.
Okay. Because I've been wondering, like, if Konami will do their WiiWare titles.
I would think maybe like My Life is a King, like, but even barely that. I really don't see My Life as a Dark Lord getting a re-release in any form.
Something that got a lot of attention yesterday was the fact that you're getting 7, 9, 10, 10-2, and 12. No 8. 8 is also not on PS4. It is on Steam. Why do you think that is?
8 is on Steam?
8 is on Steam.
That was going to be my guess, is that they just go through...
that they haven't done it yet.
That 7 was their priority, and then 9 was their next priority, and then 8 would be the one they do next. Now I don't know, Ben. It is the least popular of those 3 of the PlayStation Final Fantasies. It is the least popular. That's a very good game, though. It's like... Man, bummer. I wonder if people don't think Squall holds up. I know a lot of people don't like the what's it called? You suck away magic from people.
Draw system.
The draw system.
And the junction system. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it just sucks to have a party of all teenagers who just hate the school that they go to. But man, I really like that game. I like the style. I think the style holds up. The style is still unique. Like just the architecture and weaponry. Man, it's a cool game.
It is a cool game. I think all 3 of the PS1 Final Fantasies have very strong openings, and they're all pretty different. I think the opening of Final Fantasy VIII, and I'm just including the entirety of the first mission, is just phenomenal. And one of my favorite game openings, along with Resident Evil 4, probably ever. And that music, it is my favorite Final Fantasy soundtrack, I think.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I like it a lot. But I get the complaints with the draw and junction system.
Oh, you know,
it's weird.
Another really sucky thing about 8, I think it's the only Final Fantasy where the enemies level up with you.
Oh, sure.
That sucks.
Yeah. I
was such a fool. I was grinding Squall up to level 99 and wondering why it was not getting easier.
Yeah.
Find out much later. They scale with you.
I had forgotten about that completely.
Yeah, it sucks. I do not like that in an RPG.
I didn't even think when I was playing it at the time it came out I was aware of that.
Yeah. Same.
Okay.
Same.
Yeah, I don't think I was.
Kyle.
Yes.
I want to start with you today in the What You've Been Playing segment of Frame Trap because you said something that really stuck out to me.
Ooh.
I was asking you about Spider-Man. I don't know if I was asking you about Spider-Man or you were just talking about Spider-Man or whatever it was. But you said something along the lines of, it's so nice that I got to play Spider-Man. It's rare that I enjoy a game this much. It was something to that effect.
Sure.
And to maybe drive that point home, you've gone through and you platinumed this thing.
Yeah.
To the point where it was like, we knew, the Allies knew that you got access to Spider-Man, and then the next time we saw you, you platinumed the thing.
Yeah.
And so it just seemed like it was a really intense love affair with Spider-Man from an outside perspective. And I would love to hear you talk about that.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about Spider-Man. I was thinking about it. Maybe this was just yesterday. I was lost in thought about the game. I was thinking about its reveal and the time at E3. I think this was 2 E3s ago where I got to, this was 2 E3s ago when I got to get in on that meeting where they have the demo and Brian Tahar was there to explain things and you could ask questions afterward. A press only meeting. I remember Greg Miller was 2 rows behind me. And so it's like, I'm in the same room with Greg Miller. It was cool. Felt cool. But just, it's hard, Ben, to always appreciate the game that just the idea that the game that you're playing exists.
Right.
It's easy to forget how unusual this is, how impractical it is that you're playing a Spider-Man game of this quality on a console. You know what I mean? It's just basically you're starting it up, you're used to downloading games, you're used to the install, you're used to title screens. But then I think when you just get on top of your first building, it hits you, and you just scream, you just swear at your television because of how crazy this is. That you're Spider-Man, you're swinging around, you have webbing, and the scale of the city is just there. It's obviously still not a full Manhattan, you know what I mean? But it's just like it's close enough. Yeah. You can't believe that everything you see with your eyes, you can go up and touch with your webbed hands. You know, it's just too nuts. The game is too nuts to exist.
So you say it's too nuts to exist, and I've seen, or I guess just really the general question is, you know, we live in a time where open world games are the norm, where it's very easy to go play a game that lets you explore, that has a billion things to collect, that kind of gives you complete control. So what is it about this one that deserves so much praise as opposed to all of the other ones?
Sure. I mean, it's that you're Spider-Man.
Yeah.
It's that it feels so good. I mean, you know, not a lot of open worlds are this tall. Mm-hmm. Not a lot of open worlds, because it would be sucky. You know what I mean? Like you want to be able to see over buildings and you can't because you're on the floor.
Right.
So Spider-Man isn't. You know what I mean? And it just feels good. It's easy to rise. It's easy to fall. It's easy to traverse laterally. You know, and so. Just the fact of maybe like if you had a jetpack, that'd be another guy who would be cool to be in an open world. You know what I mean? Right. But like even that, just there's an innate sense of momentum that I think people just enjoy. It's like when I talk about Tiny Wings, the game you just play on your phone just by pressing down and going over hills. I think there's just that in humanity, and just it's fun to play with gravity.
Is that sensation, that Tiny Wing sensation, is that what binds us together as human beings?
I believe so. Yes, one of few.
You talk about how that initial feeling just hits you, and you have the sense of like, oh my god, like I can't believe I'm doing this.
Yeah.
How much time did you put into the game?
I think only 40 hours. I think it topped off at like 40. And I think a lot of that was just me like even capturing for the costume thing I had to do.
It's kind of nice hearing that you can get that platinum so quickly. Like that feels like a really
it's an easy platinum. It's an easy
amount
platinum.
of time.
I have to admit,
to get it. Did you have that same sense of wow and wonder at the 40-hour mark as you did at the 1 hour mark? I mean, did that feeling of wow, I can't believe I'm doing this carry through the whole way, or was there a point where it kind of fizzled out for you?
You definitely get there, obviously, in any relationship. But I'll still charge it up and go web swinging sometimes. You know what I mean? Like it's just fun to do. The city can't leave you mouth agape for hours, 40 hours. But yeah, I mean it doesn't wear out. It doesn't become a pain. Mm-hmm. It's a common comment that nobody wants to fast travel in Spider-Man because it's fun to travel.
Yeah,
it's a game where it's just fun to go.
Yeah, I didn't know there was fast travel at all, and then somebody mentioned that you could ride the subway, and I was like, wait, really? And then the immediate response was, why? Yeah. Why would I want to do that? So obviously you hear that a lot with this game, that it does such a fantastic job of making you feel like Spider-Man, and you rewind back to Arkham Asylum and Arkham City, and that was a common phrase thrown around. It does such a great job of making you feel like Batman. Mm-hmm. Is it a similar sensation here? Is one an evolution? Are there things that Batman does that Spider-Man could learn from, or vice versa? I mean, just personally, I think you've enjoyed the Arkham series and Spider-Man immensely.
Yeah.
How would you compare the two?
One thing I would say Batman does better, and one thing I love about it, is the sprinkling of lore crumbs. And Spider-Man has elements of that. It'll have, just like, ooh, that's from this guy. Or there's one section in particular where it's really fun just to investigate things and learn more about the world of Spider-Man and everything around it. But I love that Batman loves each and every single one of its characters and just has them all live in those worlds at the same time. I really like that a lot. Spider-Man still does a good job of that,
right?
And just the way that the enemies exist. The enemies are in this world. Mm-hmm. Feels so good.
Yeah.
And honestly, like Ben, I'm talking a lot about the open world, how good it feels to swing and things like that. This would be a very good video game if it was only the story missions. If it was just like, okay, that story mission starts and the next one begins after a cutscene. Mm-hmm. There's still a lot of fun things to do as Spider-Man throughout the story. The story seems to be written around what would be fun.
Yeah.
What would be a cool way to express Spider-Man? And you're not Spider-Man throughout the entire game. Again, try not to spoil that as much as possible, but each of those moments make you appreciate Spider-Man. They all work to make Spider-Man not just more powerful in your eyes, but you respect Spider-Man more.
Yeah. For a long time, I mean, I feel like pretty much since they've announced it, it seems like this has been at the top of your list or near the top of your list. You love Spider-Man. You've played so many of the other Spider-Man games. Is there anything that wasn't in this Insomniac Spider-Man game that you wish was there, or something that you wish was fleshed out more, or at the end, was it just pretty much a dream game for you?
Sure. I actually haven't played a lot of the, like, we'll say mid-gen Spider-Man games. Played like the PS1 ones.
Oh, okay. So you're talking like the 360 era.
Yeah.
Okay.
Web of Shadows, no. And like Shattered Dimensions, no. I've not even touched it. So
Friend
Ben,
or foe?
Friend or foe? I think a friend and I rented it on Wii and stopped after 10 minutes. I think that was
that's a good call.
The extent of that.
As someone who had to play that whole game, yeah.
That was just on Wii, or was it on everything?
No. That was on. Yeah, that was definitely on like 360 and stuff. I didn't even remember if it was on Wii.
Right, like it's easy to say like, oh, the game's huge because it's Spider-Man, but there's been many Spider-Man games. It's very hard to pull it off this much. It's hard to spend this much money on it. It's hard for a publisher to justify it.
Yeah.
But anyway, Ben, there is just a couple of times where you are wall crawling outside of a building and the interiors are real and you're like tracking a person. I love that. That's something only Spider-Man could do. I guess maybe his person could do it with like a cord, and you kind of do stuff like that in GTA 5 actually when I think about it. But I just love that. I love using Spider-Man's unique abilities. I'd love to do that more. I would love if there was more of that. This was the first ever season pass I ever purchased, so I'm hoping maybe in the DLC there'll be more cool covert ops as Spider-Man. Yeah, that's kind of a spoiler too. There's optional bosses.
Oh.
There are optional bosses in the game. My ideal version of a Spider-Man boss fight, Ben, is comic book style, TV show style, where like he gets his butt wiped the first time that he faces...
Spider-Man gets his butt wiped.
Yeah,
okay.
He finds an enemy, gets his butt wiped, doesn't know how to handle it.
Yeah.
He does some research. He's an inventor. He's a really smart guy. He figures out something. He's got to collect materials or something to build some sort of countermeasure, and then you go back and defeat that enemy.
Yeah.
Spider-Man's smart, and he's clever, and he's got Spidey sense. He wins. I would love to do more of that in a Spider-Man game.
That was a little bit distracting for me. So a lot of times when I'm playing games, especially if it's not story related, I will turn the volume down or off or pause it. But a lot of times when I'm playing games, I like to have a stream or a YouTube video on in the background, and you just kind of get accustomed to how people talk on the internet, and you notice a lot of similarities. Rarely do I hear butt wipe.
That was a Damiani original.
There's a Damiani original?
Yeah,
he was the first person to say butt wipe.
Yeah, he's the first one to say get your butt wiped. And
when was that?
He was talking about Bloodborne.
I was probably there.
Yeah, he was talking about like Bloodborne. He got his butt wiped in Bloodborne, and
you just
I can't let that die.
You took that in.
Yeah. Still blowing on those flames. Got to keep it keep it blazing.
Anyway, so Kyle, when we talk about games, and this is why I think you're such a good guest for Frame Trap, is you talk about games differently than other people, and you focus on different things than other people. And so I'm gonna ask you about the thing that you never focus on.
Oh.
Is the combat good?
You're right. It'd be like the last thing I bring up.
Right. That would be. I swear, it'd be the last thing you'd bring up. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's still fun to beat up people. I think you beat up too many people throughout the game. You know, you beat up more people than you meet. You know, that's
video games. Right?
That's exactly that's what video games are. But yeah, Ben, there's enough unique things you can do. Other than press the square button, that fighting is still fun. And I don't know, it's stupid. If I were to just listen to a podcast throughout it, I think I would like it a little less. It's important for after every fight, Spider-Man to make a joke. Even throughout the fight, his dumb jokes are important. I don't know. It keeps you engaged that this video game character is engaged the whole time,
Right.
that the video game character isn't checked out. And each time you are doing, what do we call them in Doom, where there's just like hell walls that pop up?
Yeah.
Just enemies that just come into a room and keep coming and coming. Like it's one of my least favorite
Monster
things.
closets.
Yeah, monster closet. Thank
Yeah.
you. Even when you're dealing with monster closets, they still add lore to it. Somebody will call you and it's like, Spider-Man, these guys are doing this specific thing. Oh, it's awful. Okay, I'll stop them for sure. So
Right.
there's always a reason for why you must deal with this particular monster closet. So I appreciate tiny things like that. I have a good time fighting bad guys. It's always impractical that some guys can just block you with a crowbar or something. But I understand gameplay mechanics wise, you need to mix things up, and so that's cool.
Yeah, I'm still in the early goings of Spider-Man, just because there are other games I'm on the hook to cover. But I'm really enjoying it. I noticed like a similarity between it and Dragon Quest XI, where in Dragon Quest XI, and I mentioned this in the review, the pet powers, the kind of super moves, the limit breaks that you have, that's really what they are. I mean, mechanically, they are a thing that is in countless other JRPGs. Mm-hmm. But the reason why they're special and fun and exciting is because of how ridiculous the animations they are that accompany him. I mean, they're not just shooting fireballs at people in every instance. It's like they're doing things that's like, wow, I never expected the 2 or 3 or 4 characters combine that way and perform that thing, and that's a really nice touch. I'm noticing that in Spider-Man as well, where you have these finishers, and you're just like, that was fun to watch. Like,
sure.
Yeah, there are finishers in so many other action games. It's not that special, but the way that they did it here and the way Spider-Man moves and animates, it just kind of makes you feel good.
You know what's funny though is, Ben, I would tell anyone playing not to bother with those.
The finishers?
Yeah, because in a way, like Hollow Knight, you basically build up a meter that can be used to charge up your health. Mm-hmm. And so I'd always just say, like, save them for your health.
What if you don't?
Save that meter for health.
What if you don't?
Ever get hit?
Need to heal.
Yeah. Then use them.
I don't know. I'm in the early goings of Spider-Man, so I'm in no place to comment on its difficulty. I guess that's a question. Does it get hard? Like really?
No.
I'm okay. No, it does not. All right. That's
it does not. It does not. Like, there's not a like frustrating boss. There's not a frustrating moment. There's not a frustrating crime that keeps popping up. You might die a bunch of times, but you won't die twice in a row. It's always just like, oh, okay, all right, I got it.
I did have a little bit of trouble early on just learning how to deal with the brutes, but once I kind of was
the
like,
big boys.
Okay,
yeah, those guys are awful. Yeah.
This is how they function. It wasn't too bad from there. Blood. We've been leaving you out. You hadn't played any Spider-Man, right?
No, I haven't. Just at E3.
Right.
Yeah, that's well back.
No, you don't have to explain it to me, man. I completely understand. There is something that you've been playing, and only you have been playing.
Well, Brad played it. Or no?
No,
we're talking about something else.
Nope, we're going a different direction.
Oh, okay.
Ooh.
Gotta keep you on your toes. And that is Little Dragon's Cafe.
Yes. Yeah.
Little Dragon's Cafe. That is a game that you kind of pinged me about, and I was like, oh, this looked cute, but wasn't able to check it out with you. And you just kind of, it feels like just been devouring it in a corner and like giving us periodic updates on Slack. What is this video game?
Sure. Yeah, and well, one thing too, just like last week, kind of. Well, I guess now 2 weeks. I could have had this done 2 weeks ago if I had just had like one more day, because I'm like right at the end of everything. But basically, it's it's a new kind of, I don't know, I guess you could call it like a life sim type of thing. From the creator of Harvest Moon / Story of Seasons, whichever name you want to attribute to him. And so you're both running a cafe and raising a dragon at the same time. And the reason you're raising a dragon is because your mother's gone into essentially a coma. This weird wizard pops up and says, hey, if you raise this dragon egg, it'll solve the problems. And you're like, okay.
It'll get your mom out of a coma?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so then you go through the process of learning how to, the first chapter, you end up like getting introduced to all these characters who kind of become your staff. So you have like this lazy guy who runs out on his check, and then like, well, it's like, okay, well, if you work here, then like we'll let that go. And then you get this chef, and then you get this other this woman who's always dreamed of running a cafe, so she works there. And so they all work there for you as your staff, and then you have regular customers and stuff that comes in. And the reason it stuck out more than anything was just the style of it, the visual style, the art style. It just really, it comes across really well. It's really endearing. The way these characters look, everything's kind of has like this kind of like papery texture to it, as if it was hand painted or hand drawn, and it all just it's got that cute kind of feel to it. The thing, and a lot of that, I got to experience in the previews that I did at GDC in the standalone preview event. What I couldn't really get out of any of that was, what does this look like to play over for the long term? Like, what is the day-to-day mechanics and the loop and everything? And in a way, it's sort of where the game falls apart.
Oh no. Okay.
Because
this took a turn, Blood.
Yeah. So so you've got the cafe. So you have people coming in giving orders, and they're ordering recipes that you've found. And so there's you get recipes by, sometimes you'll just get them from certain characters. Other times you'll be out in the world and you'll find like this piles or whatever, and you'll find a scrap of paper, and if you get like 4 recipe scraps, then the wizard puts it back together, and then you've got a recipe. And then if you've got the right ingredients, then you can cook that recipe, and you cook by doing this little musical mini game. And based on whether you missed any inputs in the rhythm game, then that determines the quality of the dish. And then you get to put it on your menu, and as long as you have enough ingredients, people can order that. But that's where it starts to get a little weird, because you've got everything running in the cafe, but in order to get more ingredients, you've got to go out into the world and explore. And the amount that you can explore is entirely arbitrarily limited by the point in the story that you're in, and somewhat by the growth of your dragon. And so it takes a really long time before anything changes. So you're just constantly like going out to the same resource points over and over, and like clicking the button 3 or 4 times. And that resource point, it doesn't make a heck of a lot of sense. Like, it can be like this bush, and it's like, okay, out of this bush I get carrots and onions and cabbages, and then out of this bush that looks exactly like it, I get celery and something else.
And so you can't make a farm, you have to go out and explore to get stuff like this?
Well, so anything that you find in the world gets added to your garden.
Okay, got it.
And your garden grows. But the thing with the garden is, it gets weird. The more stuff that you get, it's sort of like the less valuable it becomes, because it takes basically like a day and a half to 2 days for the garden to like generate its stock. And then you'll get a whole bunch of stuff, but it'll be like 2 eggs and 3 onions, and people will comment. They'll be like, at this point, I've got like 50 people making orders, and so if I've got 50 people ordering stuff with eggs in it, well, I've run out of eggs from what my garden's done. And one of the another things with eggs in particular is you get more eggs by finding what they call egg birds out in the world. They're kind of like a combination of a duck and a chicken. So you find them, and then they wind up back by the cafe, but they only stay at the cafe for like 3 days, and then you got to go back to the same place they were and harvest.
Build a coop!
Yeah, that's what I keep saying. Just build a fence.
Oh man.
So it's and then everything it's everything that you like. You could keep doing that loop forever. And if you're not moving the story forward, it's not going to change. So it's like, it's all about moving the story forward, and the story moves forward by cutscenes that kind of come at a random time of day. And then basically what it comes down to is there's a character that comes, and they're either depressed about something or running away from some problem or whatever. and and they want to stay in one of the rooms in the inn, and you're like, okay, you can stay here. And then after like enough cutscenes of talking to them, you find out their backstory, you find out their issue, and you find out that there's some magical recipe that somebody made for them when they were a child or something. Yeah. It's like the exact same kind of story beats, just different like oddball characters.
Sure.
And those characters are great as well. Like the character designs are all fun. They, after you get 30 something hours into it, the new ones don't seem as special. But yeah, so it's just a matter of, I know that there's even like a screen that like shows like, okay, there are 10 characters, so I know how many hours left, basically, based on how many characters there are left. And so the really only thing that progresses it gameplay wise is what stage of development the dragon's in. So like at first the dragon can go into these little caves and pull some like meat out of the caves. Then when it gets too big for that.
And are you controlling the dragon getting the meat out of the caves?
You just kind of go up and give it a command.
I see.
Which some of that, like a lot of that stuff can be finicky. There's a lot of little technical weirdness all around with it. Like a lot of pop-in, a lot of, like sometimes, like there are these birds that you essentially use. They're like chicken. Like if you hit the bird and then chicken flies out. And sometimes that little drumstick will get like stuck up in the wall, and you can't grab it. And then once in a while you'll get lucky, and the dragon will recognize it, and it'll somehow get it and bring it back to you, go fetch it for you. But it's just weird because like a lot of this stuff, it's like very randomized. But it's very randomized and specific at the same time. Like there's only certain. What
exactly
triggers... There's like 2 points on the island that I can get like miso sauce. But sometimes I'll go up and like try to get miso sauce, and like, oh, this time I got mustard, and this time I got Worcestershire sauce or something. I just, it's a weird, gathering resources is really weird, and so part of that is you just like learn to like cycle out your menus. Like, okay, this rice is getting really low. Let me switch over, like make sure I'm not using too many rice dishes and stuff. Swap out my menus. But yeah, there's a lot of weird elements to it. And then you'll be out in the world, like having to go very far away to get some to like try to stock up on all your resources. And then you'll get this like notification that your staff is slacking. And so then you have to go back to the cafe, tell the guy to stop playing his guitar.
And then go back out?
And then go back out.
Oh, man.
Or help them, because you like take people's orders and all that. And it gets pretty crazy as time goes on.
You're doing a really good job of making me never want to
I'm
pick
out,
this up ever.
but I gotta be honest.
It's weird. It's a weird game because it's like, and I may even say this towards the conclusion, that it's like, it's a cool game to check out. Like I think people should check it out, but I don't think anyone should put the effort into finishing it.
I get what you're saying. Yeah.
What exactly triggers the growth of the dragon?
It's just a story. It's just a certain points in the story.
But the certain points of the story, it's unclear when and how those trigger.
Right, and that's actually one thing I ended up having to look up because I went, like I was saying, like you could just go through day after day and be like, there hasn't been any story scenes for a bit, and it's like you have to like go in or out of the cafe at a specific time of day, and so that's why like when you get later in the game. And you're going farther and farther away to get resources, I'm out all night. I didn't realize, like, I was supposed to go back to the cafe in the evening unless I looked at the little hint thing in the menu.
Okay, so there is some signaling.
But I didn't even know that existed until I ran into a problem.
So where is this hint thing in the menu? What
there's just
menu
like
is
a thing. There's like one of those, how like RPGs like recap where the story is so far?
Yeah.
It has like all of those little chapters and then it's like next.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I would have ignored that too.
So is that like you go into a menu and that's right there, or you have to dig for it in a sub menu?
It's not that hard to find. I mean, there's not that many menus to deal with anyways,
But there's nothing in the game. There's no tooltip or anything.
Right.
It's like,
it's
maybe
like
check out this
you wake
thing.
up in the morning, like that's the thing for me most of the time. Is like I wake up in the morning, I go downstairs, and instead of seeing the cafe, we're loading a cutscene right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so when they started mixing that up a little bit more and like having to like, you have to be outside at this time of day. And there's one where I thought I was following the hint and like, what is the problem? And it was because I went outside too early. I went outside between 6 and 7, and I was supposed to go outside at 8. So all I had to do was go back into the cafe and back outside, and then there's the cutscene.
Blood. I don't know if over designed is the right word here, but I feel like this game is giving you a lot of variables, and just on a basic level, like, okay, taking care of the dragon, taking care of your garden, making orders for people, going out and exploring. Like, there's already enough to handle, and then it puts this completely confusing, nonsensical layer on top of it that if it just removed it and gave you a little bit more direction, you'd want to finish it. You'd get more absorbed into what's going on. But honestly, the most frustrating thing that you said to me was the gathering of materials, where there is no indication that if I go here, I'm going to get this thing, despite getting that thing in the past.
Right. You can't. Well, I mean, there are certain points where it's going to be, but like you said, like no guarantee. Like,
right.
And it really depends on the item it is. Like sometimes, if you, again, like stuff like, I think I've only found one spot in the game to get pepper. And I'll get pepper, and then once in a while, ketchup comes out of that spot. But yeah, it's
because
weird.
that's not what you want in the genre. In that genre, you want to build your farm and have that consistency and feel that progress.
Well, and I think that's the thing is, again, it doesn't really change other than letting you go farther and like introducing new recipes and new ingredients. There's nothing that lets me manage the cafe better. There's just more people to come into the cafe. There's nothing that lets me like say, I want to grow this in my garden. It's just like, nope, you've got more stuff, so now we're going to spread out all of those resources amongst 15, 20 different categories, rather than because I think it like early on, I would get like 10 mushrooms or something, but now that I have 30 different things in the garden, I only get like a couple here and there. So,
you mentioned how you wanted consistency and progress. I feel like in these games, the whole point is that you get overwhelmed, where it's like, okay, well, I need to accomplish these tasks. How do I do it? And then just bit by bit, you develop mastery over each of the individual parts that let you build up towards this thing. But to me, Blood, it sounds like you get it. Like, it sounds like you know how these things are supposed to function. It's just that the game is being random and arbitrary in rewarding that understanding. Like, on a certain level, it almost sounds like it doesn't matter how much you know, because the game is just going to be a little random regardless. That sucks. That just sounds like it sucks. I don't know how else to say it. Yeah. Blood, I was hoping, because like my level of appreciation for this game was how you started out, where you said like, oh, it's really charming and endearing, and it's got this unique style, and it's coming from this storied name, and yeah, no thanks. I think that's a hard skip.
The screenshots you send are nice.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the interesting things. Like, that's in the lack of other diverse things to do, I've just been like, okay, if I mix these, because you can feed the dragon certain foods to like change the color, and so it's like, okay, well, what happens if I mix this color and this color? And it's like, what can I get it a like darker shade of a color if I keep giving it the same? And some of that stuff is panned out, but it takes days worth of giving the dragon 4 of the same color or so to see it change, and then it doesn't change until the next day that it wakes up.
Do you know? You don't have to tell me the score now, but do you know what score you're gonna give it?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure at this point.
But okay, so if the ending makes you cry, will you change your score?
Have you ever cried at a video game ending?
Oh, for sure. But
wow, see, that was not a for sure for me.
But yeah, it's weird because like I said, there's still parts to like about this game. There's still certain reactions. When your staff, they kind of have their things that they like. The girl always chases the lazy guy around and yells at him to get to work, and she kind of goes Super Saiyan a little bit, and and so there's stuff to appreciate. But at times, just the pure grindiness of it's like, oh crap, I'm running out of wheat. Let me go try to figure out where to get wheat right now, or change my menu up. And just as you're yeah, it's just constantly that management of it, and that's what it's about in a way. But it's just you just want it to be a little bit more develop over time, I guess. Like the thing that I'm doing at hour 10 and the thing that I'm doing at hour 30 are basically the same thing. I just have a different set of ingredients that I'm doing it with.
Cool. I want to give you guys an update on the podcast, where we are on the podcast.
Yeah.
The forbidden phrase was said a long time ago.
Oh no.
But we're not going to get into it right now. I just want to let you know that
dragon manure.
Yeah.
Is there a penalty for saying it twice?
No.
Okay.
There maybe should be. I'll talk to him about that.
Okay.
I like that.
For the time being, I will try to say no repeated words for the rest of this podcast.
Okay. No repeated words at all. Good luck with that. But before we get into it, we got a lot of games to talk about, and so I do want to talk about one more thing. A quick thing, but a thing that I'm really a bit excited about, and that is the Mega Man 11 demo. And I was hoping that Blood or Kyle had played. Unfortunately, they haven't, so this will just be my impressions. But I've
heard that it's really hard, which sort of I come to expect from Mega Man. But
yeah, we'll get into it. Because the difficulty is definitely very interesting. I don't know if you guys have had this at E3, where you'll play something and you get, let's say, maybe 15 minutes with it. Okay, sometimes that even feels generous with E3 demos, and you love it, and you love that 15 minutes. And there's a small period of time where you're just riding super high, and you're like, that was an incredible 15 minutes. And then the more that you think about it, the more you doubt yourself. Like, your own enjoyment makes you afraid, and you're like, what if this is all a hoax?
Lego Rock Band.
You got to explain that. I don't even know what that means.
E3. You're going to E3, enjoying a game for 15 minutes, and then like, wait, no, though.
But what was the emotional pivot there?
Oh, loved it at E3. It was with, this was before, I had a show or anything. It was just QA at Activision. We played Final Countdown with like 3 Swedish men who were having a blast.
Yeah.
And we just looked around and like just had a great moment together. And I was like, man, Lego Rock Band, baby. That's so fun. That's such a good idea.
So it was just like that magical circumstance. It really wasn't about the game itself necessarily.
Yeah.
Do you have that happen at E3, Blood?
The turnaround at all, or something that I liked that I ended up...
No, just like the initial impression, I guess, being so strong that you doubt it, that maybe you're like, well, maybe this isn't as good as I think, and it was only good because I got to experience it in this way.
Oh, sure. Well, I mean, that's why I had all you guys go to Cyberpunk.
Sure, yeah.
That's funny, Blood.
Back me up on this.
Right. Well, and it was nice to see that when it came out for everybody, there was that same level of enthusiasm, or at least what I saw anyway.
So I don't want to walk out of this room and try to tell everybody how good this is supposed to be by myself.
That's how I felt about Mega Man 11, because I think it was easy to doubt that a new Mega Man with new mechanics and a new look would be underwhelming. I think just because it had been so long.
Yeah.
And the initial impression was so strong, and it was 2 Robot Masters at E3, and it was just 1 Robot Master for the demo. But on one hand, it was kind of nice just playing that a couple of times and really digging into it, and walking away and being able to chew on it and be like, no, like I obviously I can't speak to the remaining Robot Masters in the rest of this game, but at least this stage is extremely promising, and really feeling sure about that. And I think that there are things I don't love about the look. It's not my favorite Mega Man has ever looked. I think it is serviceable, and I don't think like the music is the best Mega Man music that I've ever heard. But it's fine. But to me, really, it's the playing of it, and realizing that at least right now for me, the gears are more than just a gimmick. And I think a lot of people complaining about the difficulty kind of comes in hand with what I see of people being like, oh, right, the gears, where they're trying to play this as they used to play Mega Man, and it's harder for them because so much of just this one stage is built around the gears. And Like I had somebody be like, hey, this guy that runs away from me, how do I stop him? I think it was you. And it's like, hey, you just use the speed gear. And it's like, oh,
yeah.
Like it seems really obvious when you hear it, but there's just so many different parts of this stage where it's like, wait a minute, if I just slow down time, this is so much easier. And I think the concern with the gear system, for those of you who don't know what it is, there are 2 gears that you can use. There's a power gear that makes your shot stronger, and there's a speed gear that slows down time and makes it easier to dodge attacks or to get through obstacles or whatever. And those can overheat. I think the concern is that this removes the difficulty entirely. Part of the appeal of Mega Man is that you develop the dexterity and you learn the patterns of things to get around them. But it's still, even if you use the gear system, it's not like you win the fight. It's not like a puzzle that you solve. It's just like, oh, this adapts it so it's a little bit easier for me. I still got to do the thing. And a good example of this is there's this boss that has this face that's a disc, and there are all these other discs stacked on top of it, and you can only hurt the face and it will split up and the discs will crash. And this is a hard boss the very first time that you encounter it, because the discs will fall in such a way where you don't have a lot of room to dodge it. You kind of have to thread the needle between the discs that are falling down. But you fight the boss again, and this time you're on a conveyor belt. And the discs will fall, and you're being moved on a direction. So even if you're slowing down time, you still have to account for this other force that's trying to damage you, while also capitalizing on the window of opportunity that you have to hit the face. And you feel like, okay, I'm slowing down time. It's easier to dodge this stuff, but the game is accounting for that and adding in enough things to make this a worthwhile challenge that still feels different from a bunch of other Mega Man stuff that came before it.
Are they mapped to L2R2?
Yeah, so I was playing on the Switch, and it was the not the ZL, but the L button and the R button.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Does it run out?
Yeah, so it overheats. It actually overheats pretty easily.
Okay.
And that is something that was definitely tripping me up at first. What happens is, I think part of the reason it trips you up is because you're looking at the center of the screen. You're like, okay, I've activated it. Now I got to focus on dodging. And you'll notice that your mind won't be able to even process like, oh, there's this little red bar that's filling up at a pretty good rate. And then once that fills up, you just can't use your gear speed or power at all.
Until how long? How long does it take to cool off?
I mean, it feels like a long time. It's not actually that long. I didn't count it out. I couldn't give you an exact number of seconds. It feels like, I don't know, maybe around 10 seconds, but that's a super rough guess.
Is there currency in a shop between levels?
We only, in the demo, there was only the Blockman stage. However, you do gather bolts, which makes me totally think that Auto is going to be there.
Nice, yeah.
And you're going to get upgrades from Auto. Like that, it has to be.
Sure.
You do see also that Beat is in your inventory menu, and apparently he will like rescue you from pits, as opposed to him going and attacking enemies, which is interesting as well. But yeah, man, it's just super good. I think it's straddling that line so well of being what you remember, but not just being another Mega Man game. And I think for some people, that's what Mega Man 10 ended up being, where they were so excited by the return of Mega Man and Mega Man 9 and the NES look, that when Mega Man 10 rolled around, it doing the same thing basically wasn't enough for people. I don't feel like this falls into that trap where it does enough new that it's exciting, but it's not going to be like, this isn't really what I remember. Like the bosses transform.
Yeah.
And that's
really cool.
That's enough.
Yeah.
That's enough. Like when you just get the first time you do it and that health bar goes down and then it shoots all the way back up in this giant new form. That's exciting. That's fun. It's cool. Yeah. What else is there to say?
I will be annoyed when we have to beat them all again at the very end.
Yeah. You don't like that?
No, I do not. Every time I did not like that. Ben, I played I don't think I talked about this, Mega Man Extreme 2, the Game Boy Color one. Did I ever tell you that?
Whoa.
No.
I mean, that was on 3DS. So I'm just trolling the 3DS shop again. And so Mega Man Extreme 2 takes place in the X universe. there's a certain like loadout where you can just like have this non-stop shooting pellet gun that's just invincible.
Yeah.
Really loved doing that against
There
all
is
the
a
enemies.
rapid shot in Mega Man 11, by the way, that you like is not mapped to anything by default, but you can map to something.
Cool.
So, yeah.
I'm in. All right. Then.
Anyway, sorry, you were saying.
Oh, it makes plowing through the 8 enemies a joy.
Yeah.
You feel really good about it. Most of the time, I think that's the point, right? When there's the 8 enemies at the end, you're supposed to feel powerful, like, oh, I can handle all of you now. But it's always so scary.
That's what I was gonna say. Is for me, and it doesn't happen in all of them. There have definitely been boss rushes in Mega Man where I'm like, no, this is just a pain.
Yeah.
But there have been other times where it's been like, no, this is so much easier. Like bosses that I really struggled against, I'm not struggling against now, and that's nice. I do think that's more emphasized in the X series, where you get something that reduces damage by half.
Yeah.
You get a powered up blaster. I actually think the boss rush works better in that sense, because you're like, no, I explored boss rush. You're not gonna beat me.
Yeah.
But back to the familiarity of Mega Man 11. Have you seen the minor? I struggle to call it a controversy, but controversy that people have been talking about?
Yes. And truly, I would be bothered too.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Blood, have you heard about this?
I don't think so, no.
So in Mega Man, right, when you would approach a boss door.
Oh, yes, I have seen this. Yeah.
And you guys did that, right? Everybody does that.
Every single wall, not even just the boss ones, just like every single wall that I can jump through, yes.
I didn't do it every single wall, but I definitely do it with the bosses. So for those of you who don't know, in Mega Man, okay, when you go up to a boss door and you jump to the top, the door will open, and as the screen is scrolling, Mega Man will stay in the air and scroll to the in-between screen between the level and the boss.
It's like a slow-motion Matrix effect.
Right.
It's really cool.
It's a similar sensation to in Mario Brothers 3 when the wand drops down, you jump up and you catch that wand. It's just what everybody does. You don't wait for that to come down to you. It's just a thing that people do that they've done for many games. In Mega Man 11, when you jump through the boss door, Mega Man plops back down to the ground.
And then the screen moves.
And
over.
then the screen moves. That's
it's
right.
Not right.
Yeah.
It's not right.
Blood, does this bother you? What is your opinion on it?
Yeah, they got patched this.
Do you think they will? Do you think they'll change it?
I do.
Yeah, I think it's easy enough that they'll find a way.
And above all that, it's a social media win, right? It's just like one of those stupid things, but like, yeah, I do think they will patch it.
Do you think if Mega Man, is there a Mega Man account? There probably is a Mega Man account. I don't know.
Sure.
Yeah.
But like Capcom or a Mega Man account, whatever it is, it doesn't really matter. If that happens, they patch it in and they're like, guys, we fixed it. How many, okay, now I'm ordering the game, do you expect?
Oh, yeah. I think a lot of facetious ones. I don't think anybody's actually not getting it because of that. But yeah, that'll get 10K likes.
10K?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll have to see. Hesitant to make a bet out of it, but we'll find out. Yeah, I just wanted to talk
So
about
long
the
as
Mega
there's
Man
not a
11
bug
demo
that
real
just
quick.
leaves people stuck in the air.
I think they just didn't even think that was a thing that people liked. I think they didn't even know how much we enjoy that.
Kyle, how do you feel about Bounce Man?
Is Bounce Man the one in the demo that shoots the balls all over?
He's not in the demo.
the E3,
It's just Block
right?
Man. It's in the direct that they talk about Bounce
That's
Man.
where I just saw
yeah.
that. Yeah. I'm cool with that. I'm
Yeah.
cool with Bounce Man.
I'm cool with Bounce Man.
We'll get to see him transform and whatever he turns into.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What does
See-
Bounce Man turn into?
No idea.
Okay. No, what's your guess?
It's going to be a bigger ball. It's going to be a big ball. I think we all know it.
I'm glad I asked
I'll be
that
pleasantly
question.
surprised if it's not a big ball.
What if it's like a bouncy house filled with spikes?
Spikes in Mega Man, man. Insta kills.
I want Mega Man 8 level like boss quips because I really enjoyed everything about Clown Man. I don't know if other people did, and Tengu Man specifically.
Do they not talk? There's no dialogue in this one?
No, they do. They do
okay.
talk.
Cool.
I can't remember a single thing that Blockman says, but he does talk.
Sure.
Yeah. All right. So, like I mentioned earlier in the show, we did trigger the forbidden thing to get us caught in a frame trap. Kyle, do you know what that was?
Mm-mm.
It was butt wipe.
We definitely said that more than once.
Yeah.
We definitely said that more than once.
Yeah. Yeah, that was as soon as that. Well, not as soon. It actually took them a little bit, but they did. They're like, no, it has to be a butt wipe. This is the part in the show where we talk about our wonderful sponsors. But before we talk about our wonderful sponsors, we're doing something new. We're always doing something new with Caught in a Frame Trap. We play a little game. Or last time, we actually had a bonus HOTTAKE. Just a little HOTTAKE with Brad and Hooper. We're doing the same thing, but this is a bonus HOTTAKE Hot and Ready edition. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to... Actually, you know what? I think it would be better if I just laid it on you. The more chance that I give you to think about it, the worse this game is going to be. So I'm actually not going to prepare you or the audience for what's coming up. Let's talk about our sponsors. Our first sponsor is Dale Sun. Thank you, Dale Sun. Next, we've got Jesse Vitelli. You can find him on Twitch at Justifer and on Twitter at Jesse Vitelli. Thanks, Jesse. Our next sponsor is Xotig. Thank you, Xotig. After that, we've got JoJo's Dent Co. Thank you, JoJo's Dent Co. After JoJo, we've got Ohyescoolgreat. Thank you, Ohyescoolgreat. After Ohyescoolgreat, we've got Blue. Thank you, Blue. And finally, on our regular sponsors, we've got Alex AI. And out of all the sponsors, he actually does want to plug something.
Great.
Alex AI is an SRPG enthusiast, a strategy role-playing game enthusiast. He says, love customizing mech units and a military conspiracy story? Play Front Mission 3 and support the Allies. We get the best plugs on here. After Alex, we've got our one mega sponsor. Our mega sponsor this episode is Greg the Dark Knight Kettering. Thank you, Greg. All right. I have to get a timer ready. And this is...
By the way, I love the idea of plugging old games.
Yeah, it's great. He's got a whole... There's going to be a different one for like the next couple of them at least.
That's really nice. Yeah. I like that a lot.
I'm going to give you guys 90 seconds for this. I'm going to put a timer on my phone. And what we are going to do, and you may hate this, I may hate this, but we're giving it a shot, is excluding Breath of the Wild. You have 90 seconds to rank in order our Easy Allies definitive list of 3D Zeldas. To remind you, well, I'm not including Spirit Tracks or Phantom Hourglass either.
Fair.
I'm including on this list that we have to rank Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, and Skyward Sword. So, we have 90 seconds to do this. If we fail in our task in 90 seconds, they will be ranked by the demons.
So there's 5, right?
Yes. So once again, that list is before we get the timer started, Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, Skyward Sword.
Okay.
The demons have decided that that's too early for Breath of the Wild. We're leaving that off the list.
Fair.
Maybe next time. All right. Are we ready?
Yeah. Twilight Princess last. Twilight Princess number 5.
So that would be putting Twilight Princess above Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask.
No, last.
Or less.
Yeah.
Putting Skyward Sword
I am.
above. Blood, do you agree with that?
I would put Wind Waker last.
Oh, no.
Actually, you know what?
I would definitely put Wind Waker last.
I'm going to stay out of this. I'm going to say...
Wind Waker last, Blood? No. That's like 2 or 3. We're saying Ocarina number 1, right? We can knock that one out?
Ocarina number 1.
Okay,
yeah.
so I'm guessing you want Majora 2?
What I want... No.
So it's Skyward Sword is number 2.
No.
Then Majora, then Wind Waker, and then Twilight Princess. Done. That was all the time we
Hold
needed.
on. We're not finalized yet. We got 30 seconds left. So we got Ocarina, Majora's Mask, Wind Waker, you said?
Yeah.
And then Skyward Sword?
Yeah.
Okay, so Blood, do you agree? Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, Wind Waker, Skyward Sword, Twilight Princess. 23 seconds.
No, I would at very least swap Wind Waker and Twilight Princess.
So you'd put Twilight Princess at 3 and Wind Waker at the bottom. Kyle, do you stand for this? You have to come to an agreement.
I'm doing it for the survival of Skyward Sword. I will allow it.
You will allow it?
I will allow it.
We got 5 seconds.
Yeah, I will allow it.
Okay.
All right, there's a compromise.
All right, we're done. That's it. That's
I'm not
the
sure
whole
about
thing.
those top 2 exactly, but yeah.
For the survival of Skyward Sword, the Easy Allies, Damian is going to hang us. The official list from Easy Allies of the best 3D Zeldas, excluding Breath of the Wild. Number 1, Ocarina of Time. Number 2, Majora's Mask. Number 3, Twilight Princess. Number 4, Skyward Sword. And number 5, The Wind Waker. All right.
Had to do it. Had to make the play.
Nothing more is going to be said about that.
Could not allow Skyward Sword to dip to number 5. Forgive me. Forgive me, Wind Waker.
You guys came to a compromise, though.
Yep.
It wasn't really that bloody for 90 seconds.
You wanted to swap the top 2? It's Ocarina number 1.
No, I was probably 2 and 3. Is what I would.
Oh, got you. Yeah, Blood, but I think you got to give it up to Majora's Mask. Sorry, we're outside of our 90 seconds.
I stayed out of that, but Wind Waker at number 5 is wrong. That's wrong.
Yeah, that's true.
That's just wrong. All right. Where are we? That threw me for a loop.
It reminds me.
I remember where we are in the podcast.
Ben, it reminds me of the stress of fantasy football trades. Is what we just did there. It was so funny. You had a ticking clock, and I had to really wait things out and play the game. You don't always get what you want, but in the compromise, you got to get that one thing you want by slipping it under the rug. That was fun.
Yeah.
Good game. I like that.
Yeah, I didn't know how I was gonna feel about it, if I liked it or not liked it. I liked it, and I have some ideas for the future. All right. I closed down the clock. That's how into it I was. All right, there we are. We're one hour and 10 minutes in the podcast. What do we want to talk about next? I think I want to talk about Tomb Raider next. I'm a little ways into Tomb Raider, like I was a little.
I'm a little ways into Tomb Raider.
Yeah, you're further than I am, Blood. So tell me how you're feeling about Shadow of the Tomb Raider, and you played all the way through Tomb Raider 2013 and Rise of the Tomb Raider.
Yeah. I mean, it's no surprise or shock that it's fairly iterative. I mean, so far it feels like those games, like one of those games. I think the biggest difference you get in these opening hours is just human beings. There are other people in this game that are not your friends, and they're not people for you to stab in the back of the head. So, you've got bustling town areas. There's the one that we played at the reveal event, which is in Cozumel, Mexico, during the Day of the Dead. And then the one I just got to is the first town in Peru. And it kind of one of the things I was looking forward to from E3, and I'm a little on the fence in the implementation of it, is kind of cool, is they have an option for the audio to have immersive, I think they just call it immersive audio. So you hear whatever the native language is, and you have subtitles in English. But where it gets weird is Lara will just talk to them in English. Like, we're in the middle of the jungle. These people should not know English. I don't buy it.
So, like, why take the step for immersion if it'll never get there all the way, you mean?
Yeah, and there's another, like main character that you just start talking to in English. And I guess there's a little bit, I mean, there are, like, these guys there that I did a side quest for the people who are, like, kind of have sort of like a labor camp or something going on. Like, they're, like, forcing the locals to help them mine or something like that. So I guess they're not completely isolated yet. But I think that there are, from what I saw at E3, like, there's, like, towns that are, like, even deeper in. And I just don't think that Lara will ever say anything that's not English, most likely. And the other funny thing to me, too, is there's a lot of costumes in Shadow of the Tomb Raider.
Cool.
Particularly if you got, like, the bonus edition, which they gave us that version for the reviews. And there's some fun ones in there. Like, you can play with, like, Tomb Raider 2, like, total polygon Lara.
So that has to be a special edition one, right? They can't give you that one off the bat.
I think that probably is a special edition thing. I don't know for sure. It's kind of hard to, like, separate out. There are some things that are like, oh, this special edition bow and pistol are way overpowered. I'm just gonna ignore those things.
Just for the review, right? Just because.
Yeah, well, I'm not doing a review, but I'm just on my own. It's like, I don't want to use that thing. Come on.
Yeah, I did have that reaction where I was like, oh, that's cute, this is an option that I have.
Yeah.
I looked at it and then immediately switched back to what I was wearing before. I was like,
right.
No, this doesn't.
But I found what I
to me.
was going to bring up though is I found some of these costumes are things that you find through the challenges and stuff like that. And there's one that basically you wear like this big blue like bird feathers on your back.
Sick.
And it's kind of a cool looking costume, but then I get into this cutscene, and we just like walk out of the jungle into this town, and we're talking to this woman. She's all suspicious of us, anyways. And here I am with all these bird feathers all over my body. I'm like, what is that? What am I wearing right now? This is ridiculous.
Do the costumes have stat bonuses?
Yes.
Cool.
So that's why one of the reasons you would wear that.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
like, there's like berries or whatever that you eat that allow you to see resources more easily.
Yeah.
And that allows that effect to last longer.
This is foolish. This is one of my favorite things in a video game.
What is this?
Like unlocking costumes that give you like in Spider-Man too.
Right.
That's my favorite part of the progression in Spider-Man is getting new costumes.
What is it so much that you like about the costumes? The new abilities, the new look, just the...
You get a sense of your character progressing, I guess. It's my favorite part of a movie, Mighty Ducks. You know, it's just like we got new uniforms. I was talking to Jones about Dragon Quest. I'm like, yeah, can you change their costumes? He's like, sometimes. And I'm like, what do you mean sometimes? He's like, I don't know. I think this is something we share in common with Jones. Is like he also like really likes to upgrade costumes and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's an element of games that I truly love.
Yeah. In Dragon Quest, there's gear that is specially marked that when you equip it, not only will it be better for you, but you'll also change your look completely.
One of the
sick,
cooler ones, because I've only, like, in terms of the ones that weren't just, like, thrown at me for bonuses or whatever, the other one that I got is you end up fighting these jaguars and having to survive against these jaguars. And then you even see, like, in cutscenes, she's, like, curing the jaguar skin and, like sewing it together, and then I got this jaguar costume.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Does it have a skull on it?
No skull.
Okay. All right. Still cool.
Uh,
And I'm sorry, those are random challenges that pop up throughout the world, or do you see them on like a mini map? Do you see like a challenge icon?
In terms of how to get the costume?
Yeah, how do I find those jaguars to kill?
Well, the way they the jaguars is part of the story, so you're gonna you're gonna get that no matter what. The other ones I think I found through like the crypts. I'm trying to remember where I found the first one. The top, the feet. I'm pretty sure I found in a crypt. Which is like an optional side cave that you a lot of times you have to come back to them. They're sort of like Metroid style gating in places where it's like, okay, you can't go through here until you find your pickaxe, and then you can smash through those rocks. Some of them, I know they did this in Rise as well. Using the shotgun as a gating mechanic is just, come on.
It's like a wall that only a
There's
shotgun
like
can break.
like a piece of like aluminum sheet metal, and you can't go through it because I don't have a shotgun. I'm like, just come. How many worse things have I torn down by now?
Samus does it. Samus does it with her missiles. It's like, sorry, 100 regular missiles won't do this, but a super missile would. She does the same thing?
Well, it's not the same thing.
Okay.
It's not
All
the
right.
same thing.
Same thing?
how is,
For what?
yeah, I mean, I guess
If
think
I got
fall
like
on
a
Kyle's side
timed
here.
mine, like if I got like C4, got it. That makes sense to me. But a shotgun, what is it gonna do anyways?
I think if Huber were at this table, he would argue that it would be the most powerful weapon that you can get.
The ultimate key.
Right, the ultimate key. Because once you have that,
You know what you're gonna do? You're gonna have some pellets ricochet and hit you back in the face. Is what you're
Don't do it at home.
Yeah, do not try this at home.
yeah, I get what you're saying, Gled. I do kind of just accept that it's a gating mechanic, though. You know, don't think about it too hard, I guess.
Well, I also like there's some chests like I come across that I need lockpicks, so I can't just like break those open.
Right. Blood, I remember when you and I did the preview, when we saw it kind of, I think it was the reveal event. We talked on video and we said that a concern that we had was that there wasn't enough new there. Do you feel like that concern was justified?
Sure. I still, from even what Brad has been saying, like, I don't know that there is that much new here. I think it's really more of just how they've altered the balance. Like, I haven't done that much fighting. I haven't done that much stealth. You know, I've done a little bit here and there. For me, it's been a lot of exploration, just because there is, quite a bit of, hidden places and little challenges and stuff. Like, you have to shoot these bird nests. Why, I don't know, but stuff like that. And so I've been taking my time, finding those things that are out in the world. But one of the things that the story, some things are definitely improved, and other things, like, I don't know. They go into to Lara's character a bit more, and I feel better about them doing that this time than I did in Rise, for sure. Like, Rise with the whole, you remember, like, how, like, in advertising they're, like, trying to, like, do the whole therapist thing and all that, and it was like, I don't know if I, like, really feel this, like, whole tortured Lara kind of dealing with her demons and stuff. But with this, it's like, I just feel like her and Jonah are just having some pretty natural, laid-back conversations, and that feels better to me. The thing that that's not working for me is, like, expanding the lore through, like, collectibles, and, like, her reading off all of these, like, letters and things from the Mayan carvings and Incan carvings and things like that. And I feel like she's really just sitting there reading a nice encyclopedia entry to me.
Yeah.
Like, it does very little interest in any of this stuff. I've got nothing. She's not giving her reaction to say why I should be interested, why I should care about these letters from past explorers and what happened to them. It just doesn't. There's not a lot there for me to connect to, like, why I should care about collecting these extra side stories.
Sure.
Other than, with the murals, I think if you get enough of them, then, like, you can unlock a monolith. And even that's a little weird, because, like, now I can read the monolith, but it just tells me to go over, like, 5 feet away and dig up something that I should have been able to dig up before. I just didn't have the button prompt to be able to do it. So, some of that's, but I've enjoyed the world. I've enjoyed exploring. I really think that, like, audio visual wise, like, it's really, really good.
Yeah, I agree.
Audio in particular, because I have a surround sound system, so it's nice when it's like I actually hear things skittering around behind my head. Hear, like, the pigs or whatever they are. I think they're like capybara, but they sound like pigs, running around through the jungle and that kind of thing.
You mentioned the natural conversations between her and Jonah, and I really agree with that. There's a scene early on where they're in the jungle, and something that when you're exploring a dangerous jungle happens to Jonah, and I'm not going to spoil the whole thing, but him and Lara are trying to deal with it. And through dealing with kind of this grisly situation, that's where they kind of open up a little bit, and you just think, like, oh, this is the perfect way to do this. Like, they're trying to make light of a less than comfortable situation, and they're just getting a little bit more intimate with each other. And I agree. I care more about her in this game than I have in my experience with her in other games, for sure. Kyle.
Yeah.
Just looking at the reviews and the scores and just kind of the commentary, I feel like the response to Shadow of the Tomb Raider has kind of been all over the place. Some people are like, it's great. Some people are like, it's middling. And some people don't like it very much. You're kind of seeing a good smattering of opinions. What do you think the future of Tomb Raider is?
Oh, Ben, I think we're about to have a little Tomb Raider nap. I think I think that both of Crystal Dynamics and Eidos are probably both going to be doing Marvel stuff for a while. And so maybe we'll get, other, like, we had Lara Croft Go, and we had Lara and Osiris, whatever. We had other Lara Croft games. So maybe a smaller scale budget, kind of some other take on Lara Croft. But I don't think we'll see a Tomb Raider game in 2 years announced, is what I mean, to this AAA level.
Do you think these kind of other games that you're talking about, do you think there'll be any attempt at a reboot? Do you think they won't focus on a narrative at all and they'll be kind of more based around the mechanics like they've done in the past?
Right. Like those top-down Lara Croft games aren't reboots, right?
Right.
It's just kind of like, she's basically the old PlayStation Lara, and so we don't really care what timeline this is in or anything like that. I expect that. I expect maybe that kind of thing. That is my expectation. This could blow up. This game could be huge this fall. I don't know,
I don't think people could stomach a full reboot. Like, they've got to, at this point, like, they've got to take this Lara and like push past this being an origin story and just give you something else to chew on. You know, give her a different, give her a different motivation.
It's funny. It'd be rare in, I think, our modern era to have a franchise who is performance captured by one person for 4 games.
Yeah.
You know, it's I guess we had Uncharted got to 4, and that's very much Nolan North the whole time. Yeah, it's rare. That's a total rarity. It's hard for me to imagine it really getting pulled off. Could happen.
Yeah, well, I don't think it necessarily has to be the same actor or anything, but it's just...
You said this Lara.
I mean, the character.
Oh, I don't think you can continue that particular character without Camilla Luddington.
You don't?
No. That would be wrong, right? Just, okay, well... Yeah, it's James Bondish, right? It's like if you have one organization running throughout the whole thing, then you need the same actor running through the whole thing. But then they don't reboot James Bond every time they recast him, but they, I feel like some common threads are dropped. I don't think you could, Blood. I don't like. I think she really put her stamp on the character. I don't know. It feel weird to me. Okay, you're willing to drop her, huh?
I guess, yeah. I don't know that there's that strong of an attachment in that sense to me, but
man, I think she makes it. I don't know. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough for me. It's tough for me to figure out. These decisions on publisher side are so hard to make. Developers can come up and say, hey, we want to make this fun game all day long, but publishers have to say yes or no to it, and they have to say, well, is this worth 20 mil, right? Is this worth what we have to invest into it? Scary. And it's definitely more than 20 mil these days, isn't it? Yeah, Ben, to answer your question quickly, TLDR, I do think Tomb Raider will take a break after this game. It's tough, though. I don't have any ill will toward it. I was hovering over buy now today.
Yeah.
Just this morning, I was like, man, should I get this game? It is just too intense of a season.
Do you think that's it for you personally?
Yeah.
It's really nothing to do with Shadow of the Tomb Raider. It's just there are so many other things vying for your attention.
Yeah.
Like what games are preventing you from hitting that buy now?
So I know that Valkyria is at the end of this month.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying, I'm getting better at balancing box peak and other things, you know what I mean? But still trying not to devote too much time to video games. I devoted a lot of time to Spider-Man.
Treat yourself.
You got to treat yourself, otherwise you can't be creative or
function as a human being.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or, be happy. You can't wake up happy if you're like, oh. So, yeah, it just it was like maybe Assassin's Creed. I should play this. That's October 5th.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Oh, it's so hard. It's so hard to pick these things.
Do you think
such a huge one? I mean, that's for me. It's like for Tomb Raider. That's why it was easy for me to grab that because I know I'm gonna get through this.
Yep, 16
in
hours?
less than 20 hours.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
yeah.
Assassin's Creed. It sounds just gigantic.
Yeah.
And I've already played the first 7 hours of it, so it's gonna be hard to replay that and try to get all the way through. But
man,
do you think it's the demo for Valkyria Chronicles 4 that really kind of won out in the end? Because when you have limited time, it comes down to confidence in how much you're going to enjoy this thing, right?
Yeah. So Ben, it's really funny what I do, or what I was doing before this podcast to try to remember all the games that I played since our last podcast, is I went through my emails and looked at my purchases from Nintendo and PlayStation. And so I saw a PlayStation email is you downloaded the Valkyria Chronicles 4 demo. And then, hours later, you purchased Valkyria Chronicles 4. Yeah, it's really funny. Yeah, it's a demo. I would not have pre-ordered that game if not for that demo, certainly.
Yeah. I'm not going to get into it on this frame trap, and I'm sure Blood would be able to speak to it a lot more we'd be able to speak in a lot more detail than I would be able to, but I played the Forza Horizon 4 demo last night.
Oh, they have a demo up. Cool.
Yeah. And it is also very generous. I feel like you get to do so many things in that demo.
Is it a chunk of the map? How do they do it?
So it's a chunk of the map, and they kind of like string you along this first season, Autumn, and they're having you go around to different events and building up your influence. And each of these events that they're stringing you along to is dramatically different. And it's like, okay, well, here I'm a stunt car driver trying to shoot this movie. This other one, I'm doing this big dirt race. And it's just like, hey, this is what you're going to be doing in Forza Horizon 4, the sample size.
They have stuntman stuff in there?
Oh, yeah. And it's really fun.
That's pretty cool.
It's really fun.
Yeah.
And it's a good-looking game, and so when you have that plane shooting by you, you feel it. Yeah. And anyway, once you get done with all that stuff, and there's still more for me to do, they just put a bunch of icons on the map, and they're like, hey, go do this jump, go do this speed trap. And so it's just like a little bit on the end after you get your sampling size of events. And I did not hit the buy now, but I will buy it. And I was going to buy it anyway, but the demo just like really made up my mind on like, hey, I think this is going to be a good time. Speaking of good times, I'm 9 hours in to the Xenoblade Chronicles 2 DLC. Or standalone expansion is the correct term for it. Torna, the Golden Country. And a little bit of a preamble here. I'm super bad with expansions or DLC because by the time they come out, it's like, especially with something like Xenoblade Chronicles 2, where it's like, oh man, I spent dozens of hours with this. I finished this story. I went on a grand adventure, and all these months later, like in a way, my mind has already it's had closure with itself. You know,
it's done, yeah.
And maybe that's just a me thing.
It's not, dude. Same for me for almost every single game. Yeah,
it's just hard, I think, when you have such a long period of time to kind of jump back in and emotionally invest yourself again. But Torna did it in a way that I was not expecting. So what it is it focuses on, it's set 500 years before Xenoblade Chronicles 2, but what it focuses on is the key story that gives the antagonists and a lot of the key characters in Xenoblade Chronicles 2 the motivations for doing what they're doing. Cool. So they do all this stuff in Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Here's how they got to that point. And Laura, the girl that you're playing, I think is a stronger protagonist than Rex. I think she has more going on emotionally and personality-wise than Rex does. Not that there are people that hate Rex. I don't hate Rex, but I do think she's stronger. And what I enjoy about it so much is it's this like nice condensed version of Xenoblade Chronicles 2. And it's still sprawling. It's still huge. Like very quickly, you get to Gormat and you have this giant landmass to explore. But just getting to that point happens so much more quickly. I feel like they give you the tools for combat so much more quickly. And there definitely is messing around, but I think it just kind of, when you think back on your time with this huge RPG and all of the things that you like, if you were to make a list, like, the meaningful exploration, the interesting combat, the bountiful side quests, I feel like you just kind of get to the juice a lot more quickly. And they've revamped the battle system in a way that I am super into. So in the base Xenoblade Chronicles 2, there was kind of this gacha system where the blades, the tools that you were primarily relying on for combat, you got them mostly through this system where you would get these boxes essentially and open up these boxes and you'd have a chance to get something, and maybe it was good or maybe it was bad. And the animation for doing that was really long, and so it kind of became this tedious thing that you had to manage and deal with, this growing collection of blades. Here, at least so far, you don't have to deal with that at all.
Nice.
You just... This character has this blade or two blades that are associated with them, and that's it. And so it's like, okay, I know what I'm dealing with. Fights are built around me having these things, and I'll go for it. And the other big change is that in Xenoblade Chronicles 2, despite like you switching blades, you'd have one life bar for each character. In Torna, you have two life bars or 3, depending on how many blades a driver has. You'll have the driver's health bar, and then you'll be able to switch mid-combat into a blade, and then that blade will have its own health bar. And what they allude to and what you have to do in battle is you can take a lot of damage very quickly, and so you'll have to keep switching through who you're controlling in any given moment so they don't die.
Cool.
And so you're managing multiple health bars. But the other thing that's neat is when you switch, you do an attack. So if the character is fighting and their blade is behind them, by being behind them, the blade will have its own abilities that it can do. And they call it like Vanguard and the Rear Guard. And if they're in the Rear Guard, it's like, I will do this set of things. If I'm in the front, I'll do this set of things. And then when we switch, I'll do a special attack that will only happen when we switch. And Xenoblade Chronicles has the break, topple, launch, smash system. And what is really cool and super satisfying to pull off is you can break somebody, and then your switch attack will topple them. And so you'll put them in this state, and you'll be like, come on, buddy, get in here. And they'll come in, and they'll completely smash them to the ground. And that feels really fun. And it's just super active, and there's a lot to deal with. But especially if you've played Xenoblade Chronicles 2, it's not overwhelming. They do take the time to introduce things and be like, hey, this is how you switch. This is how you switch blades. This is what a driver combo is. This is what a blade combo is. Here's how you progress your characters. I would argue that it's not the best explanations ever, and that's something that Xenoblade Chronicles 2 suffered from as well. But they do walk you through them, and unlike Xenoblade Chronicles 2, if there's anything that you're unsure of, you can go in and reference stuff in the menu if you have any confusion stuff. But yeah, not just having to deal with the gacha system is super nice. The switching is super nice. And it's just a very, very active combat, and especially coming off Dragon Quest XI, which it's not a knock against Dragon Quest XI. They're just very different styles. It's nice having that variety and reminding myself, like, oh man, like Monolith Soft is so good at making incredibly distinct combat systems that you really can't quite compare to anything else, or really can't quite compare to even other things that they've done. Like, you can make comparisons, but there's a unique flavor there that I'm really into. What I would say, though, is Nintendo has been marketing this as like, hey, this is standalone. You can download it on its own.
Yeah.
And it is a condensed Xenoblade Chronicles, which is nice. It doesn't seem like it's going to be as long as those games. The official estimate, I think, is between 20 and 40 hours, which is a lot, but that's a lot less than Xenoblade Chronicles 1 or 2. However, I would really argue that you don't do that.
You're just not going to get anything out of it?
No, you will. You will get stuff out of it. I don't think the story is so complex that you won't be able to draw any appreciation from it. Again, you are kind of coming into these characters at a pivotal point in their journey, and like on some level, I think you'll be able to appreciate where they're coming from. But if you've played Xenoblade Chronicles 2, the scenes that are supposed to hit just hit that much harder, where it's like, okay, I can tell this has an effect on them, but because I played Xenoblade Chronicles 2, I know where that goes too. I feel like it's probably kind of a similar sensation to watching Breaking Bad before watching Better Call Saul. It sort of feels like that setup. But more importantly, the reason why I say to play Xenoblade Chronicles 2 first is it does get into the politics of Xenoblade Chronicles 2, where it's like, okay, here are all of these warring nations, here are all these different leaders, and again, it's not that you can't follow that before, it's not that you can't follow that, but I feel like you'd have to really strain yourself to do so. For me, having already played Xenoblade Chronicles 2, even though it's been forever, it's kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, you just mentioned that briefly, but I know what that thing is. Whereas if I was just coming at this for the first time, I think why these people are fighting and what their stakes are and the history of this thing, in addition to getting invested into these personal stories of these characters, it would just be a lot to process.
Got you.
And I feel like you'd just be straining yourself that much more. Whereas if you played Xenoblade Chronicles 2, you can kind of go for the ride a little bit more. But yeah, it's really good. One thing I don't like is there's a lot to pick up. So there are these gathering points, and these were in Xenoblade Chronicles 2 as well, where you'll like go to a flower and a bunch of collectibles will spew out, and you can get different plants, or you'll go to bugs and a bunch of bugs will spew out. When you pick these things up, they'll say a little quip.
Okay.
And sometimes these gathering points, they're really close to each other, or you'll be focusing on gathering stuff, and your character will say something along the lines of, "This is getting addicting." And then when you hear "this is getting addicting" like 12 times in 5 minutes, you got to worry about it. It just wears on you a little bit.
You got to worry about that character.
Yeah, common problem here. The gathering point thing.
Yeah.
Because there's that, and then we got the gathering point issues with Little Dragon's Cafe, and then
right.
We didn't really talk about them, but I kind of feel like I'm gathering a bit too much in Tomb Raider. It's like, okay, grab this stick, grab that flower, grab the hide, just pick it all up, the whole jungle in my bag.
Well, speaking of doing things that are not like exactly related to the main story, there is extra incentive in Torna versus Xenoblade Chronicles 2 for doing side quests, and it's called your community. And what happens is when you do a side quest for somebody, you will add them to your community, and it is its own thing that you're leveling up. And once you get to a certain point, you will reach a new level and more quests will level up. And so beyond getting just the bonus of the experience, the money, and whatever items they give you for completing the side quest, you get this other little thing on top of it.
Like that.
And man, like it's such a simple thing. There's really not that much to say, but seeing these faces appear in this circle around the face of your character, you're kind of like, oh yeah, I want to go add more people to my community. And in Xenoblade Chronicles 2, there were certain side quests where I'm like, I don't know where this thing is. I'll just drop it. I'll leave it. I do find myself, just because of this little extra layer, feeling more incentivized to go out there and complete side quests. So I appreciate that.
That's cool.
As well. And the music. I got to talk about the music.
Sure.
It's great. The battle theme in particular, just
they have a whole new battle theme for this?
Yeah, they've got a whole new battle theme for this. And it's, instead of your like typical kind of rocky guitar heavy sounding stuff, it's this like funky jazzy piano, like dun 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 dun. And yeah, it just makes me feel good every single time I go into battle. That's not the only good track, but that is the first one that immediately comes to mind that I'm way into. So yeah, I like it. I like it a lot. I want more Xenoblade. Yeah, man, it's just such a good feeling where you're not sure about something. I remember booting this up and being okay, I'm not sure if this is going to hit me. And then, like, losing track of time, you're having so much fun.
Cool.
And I know I've criticized some stuff on here, but I feel like for me, this is exactly what I wanted from a Xenoblade Chronicles 2 expansion. So I'm very pleased. But let's end it with what seems to be an immensely charming game.
Sure.
And that is Moss.
Yeah. Ben, Moss is my favorite VR game to date.
Ever.
Yeah.
Nice.
More than Resident Evil 7.
Yeah. Sorry, RE7.
Okay.
For the record, did not even try RE7 in VR.
Okay.
Yeah, Moss it's a game in which you are playing two characters. You're playing one, the Quill, which is this little cute mouse who wanders around just beautiful areas, and you're also playing the Reader, who is this kind of omnipotent, strange masked character who can control things in the environment. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, you're controlling. You use your regular old controller in your hand. It's not like a motion control or handles or anything.
Do they reference the Reader? Do they talk to the Reader?
Frequently, yes.
That kind of reminds me of the commander in like Fire Emblem.
Sure. Yeah. It's a little like that. Yeah. One thing I wish it didn't have is just like very storybookish narration. So even Quill, the tiny mouse, will talk to you, and she'll say like, "Hey, help me, Reader! I need your help in this moment of need." And it's like, "Oh, all right," but only in cutscenes. And so when you're actually playing the game, no narration, which is really nice. some of the best environments I've ever seen. So just imagine, Ben, being in a huge forest and then a tiny little mouse village. And then mice have just built up like stacks of houses and things like that. And just seeing that to scale, seeing that ahead as you look forward, and then as you get closer to the environment, being inside of that environment, being able to like peer into windows and just seeing mice walk down the streets, and then eventually seeing Quill's home. You know, and Quill's home has tiny little details and things. And so I like that. You know, I like mechanical things that fit inside of each other, and like gears turn and then they just unhinge and turn into other things.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of what you do with your controller, motion control wise as the reader. You're helping Quill out, moving platforms and switching things around, controlling enemies to things, and then at the same time using your analog stick and jump button to move Quill around and attack and things like that.
Wow.
Really cool balance of player and the player's character, environments. It's not too long. There's a nice progression to where you start to where you end, very clear, and just very unique, interesting ways to implement puzzles into VR. Really, really like this game.
2 questions.
Yep.
First, are there spiders?
I think not.
Okay.
There are not spider enemies, but they might, just in the environment. I don't know for sure, though.
That's enough, man.
That I just went, of course. Yeah.
No, I mean, normally I can handle that.
Yeah.
Like in Hollow Knight, it
Right.
was bad at first, but I got over it. Anyway, second question. What is the is there a strong narrative hook, or is it just kind of about being in the moment in this adventure?
For me, it's about being in the moment in this adventure. There is a strong narrative hook that you have to get to this castle. Man, the castle's so cool too.
Oh baby.
Yeah, so it's a fairy tale-esque story too, and the hero's journey and all this. You go to different places you would not expect, and it's just yeah, I like the Hobbit-esque story from small little area to just epic arenas at the end.
Yeah.
It's nice.
Cool. Was there ever any struggle in getting the mouse to do what you wanted it to do?
No, but here's the thing. You do have to fight enemies a bunch, more than I thought you would.
Huh.
And fighting is only the square button for attack and circle to dodge.
Okay.
You can help out sometimes, you can like grab onto the enemies, but I don't like talking about combat. It's not the first thing I bring up.
Yeah.
But when it's like a little stinky, I'll bring it up, and it's a little stinky in Moss.
A little stinky as in it's too simple?
Yes.
Okay.
And the enemies are really strong. And so all you do are just maybe grab or dodge, but like it's not fun to do waves of enemies when the most damage you can do is pressing square.
How long does it take to are the enemies taking too long to get rid of?
Kind of, because they'll do waves. They'll
Sure.
do like a big flame door, DMC style, and then you just have to finish all the enemies off in that, and then the flame door loses its power and it goes back down,
Gotcha.
That kind of thing I do not like.
Man, Kyle, that raw emotion you had when you just kind of described viewing the world.
Oh yeah,
that was honestly and truly like this childlike wonder that you had. And before the podcast, I said, "Why does VR feel like it's over?" And I wasn't trying to be like snide or sarcastic.
Mm-hmm.
It's just I've been away from it for so long, and it just doesn't, to me, feel like it's part of the conversation in the same way that it was a year or two ago. And you just made me feel like a big idiot that like I just don't know. I just need to play Moss and like get that sensation inside of me.
And I'm wondering if you saw that whole TGS press conference that was slathered with VR releases.
So no,
Sure.
I didn't. I actually did not end up. I fell asleep before the TGS press conference happened. It was just like waking up the next day and being like, okay, what was announced?
Oh, and yeah, VR
Right.
games did not get headlines.
I
that's what
thought
I
you were
mean.
saying that I missed VR stuff.
So it was
There
like
was,
it was
but
all
people
over.
probably didn't talk about it.
But
yeah.
they were so boring, you know what I mean? Like,
Wow.
it's not unfounded for you to say, why does it feel like empty? You know what I mean? Why does it feel like it doesn't have momentum right now? I get it. There's
Yeah.
things pop up.
Well, and everything has its highs and lows. It's just there was
Yeah.
this narrative of like, man, this is really the future.
Mm-hmm.
But it is nice to get this perspective where something, you're not sitting here and going like, oh, this is a game that is pulling the same tricks I've seen 100 times before. I mean, you're somebody that has sampled a pretty high volume compared to the average person of VR games, and the best is yet to come.
Sure. Yeah. I think the PSVR is not good enough. I think that it's hard to recommend to someone this late into the console's life cycle to pick one up now. Even playing through Moss, there's issues. Just like when it like thinks that your head is moving forward and backwards, and so your vision moves forward and backwards really rapidly. That sucks.
Yeah,
that's just a sucky thing. And so I do think it's getting better. You're right. The best is yet to come. It's hard for me to say, guys, go out and get a PSVR in Moss right now. Right. But if you bought that PSVR, you're looking for a game, Moss is very good. Is basically the best I can do. And also, it is on Oculus. It is on Vive.
I always struggle with this question, so I apologize. But do you know how much it is?
$30.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well done. We're sniffing. We're starting to get a faint trace of the next generation of consoles.
Yeah.
Whatever the next PlayStation is going to be, whatever the next Xbox is going to be, and so on.
Yeah, PSVR being a part of that would be tricky. Yeah.
That's really the question. You think PSVR is going to be a part of that out the gate?
I do, and I think I'm in again.
Okay.
Oh, you know what, Ben? It might not be out of the gate. I think it'll be compatible, right? They'll develop it with VR in mind. Maybe not requiring an external box this time. But I don't think it's going to launch with PSVR. I think that'd just be too much hardware to launch with. I think they would wait until like March of the next year after. It's my best guess.
Yeah, I think you're right. When you say too much hardware to launch with, obviously price point is a big deal when it comes to people making console decisions, especially when there's very direct competition. But at the same time, having it there on the ground floor seems somewhat appealing. I feel like you'd be able to catch a bunch of people who maybe would otherwise ignore it because they have other things vying for their time, and launches are notoriously usually pretty dry when it comes to games. Like, do you think it could work where you have a base edition and a PSVR edition?
Yeah.
Or is that still too much?
Well, it's weird. I think if it was lighting up the world more, yes. Like Sony could come and say, like, this is the one thing the Xbox One doesn't have, you know,
right.
and would be right. But I don't think people who don't have VR desire VR. Is kind of how I feel about it right now.
Right.
I think the people who want it have it, and it's going to be really hard to sell the others. And I don't know if you really I don't know, Ben. I don't know if you would do a bundle straight out from the top.
Yeah, but I mean, you talk about the people that want it have it.
Yeah,
that's a good number of people.
It is, right. There are more PSVRs than Oculus or Vives,
right.
In particular. Yeah.
I mean, I think there's still a lot of people that is just, you know, they want it, they're curious, but it's just out of their price range. Mm-hmm. Like, they don't want it enough to spend that kind of money on it.
So, and it's expensive technology too. I think it's going to be hard to make cheap.
Yeah. I could see, I mean, to me, I could see them finding a way to make the current headset compatible with whatever they do on the new PlayStation.
Sure.
But then waiting 2 years or so for the new headset that can clearly do something that's worth that new investment.
I get what you're saying, Blood. That's a good idea. And maybe PS5 will be backwards compatible. That would be nice. That'd be really nice.
That would be so nice. Thinking about how many games I've rebought definitive editions, remasters, all of that stuff during this generation.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I buy a lot of games. I'm not trying to say I definitely won't do this or trying to make some grand stand, but to go through a whole nother generation, like, I think even you
got to draw a line.
You got to draw a line somewhere. I don't know if they can get away with it again, but who knows?
Oh, they can. The truth is, they can.
Yeah, I think you're right. I agree with you. I think you're right. I think they can. People want it. I said we were going to end the What You've Been Playing segment, but we can't end yet. Blood's got to talk about Mother 3.
Oh, okay.
I have been so curious about this game for such a long time, and to hear that you're actually playing it, like, I'm desperate for opinions.
Yeah. So for people who may not have any idea what the heck Mother 3 is, it is a sequel to Earthbound. Earthbound is Mother 2, and it came out on the GBA in 2006 in Japan.
Yeah.
And now fans have spent the last 10 10, 12 years asking for America to bring it out.
2006.
Did you see?
Still hasn't happened.
Did you see Darren Aronofsky's take on the series recently?
No.
You haven't seen Mother?
Oh gosh, I was like, that name doesn't seem like it makes sense. But anyways, okay.
Forgive the bad jokes.
No, I haven't seen it anyways. But yeah, so it's to catch people up with like what the series is like. It's it's a JRPG with turn-based combat and very quirky characters and enemies and visual style and music. I fought a thing in a forest fire called a yam monster, and then after the forest fire there was a baked yam monster that looked exactly like a sweet potato. Mm-hmm. And you kill it, and then you get a baked jam that will heal you for like 50 HP or something.
That's
like that.
good stuff.
Yeah,
that is very good stuff.
Just to give you an idea of the kind of quirky craziness there is.
Yeah, what you mentioned to me on Slack that I really want to dig into is, yes, it's super quirky, but that is kind of like sandwiched between pretty sentimental scenes.
Yeah, my stream titles are almost becoming unintentional spoilers. Because I think I'm going to do this thing, and then I get into the stream and I'm like, oh, that's never going to happen because this just happened. This horrible thing just happened.
How deep are you in when there's like heartbreaking moments already?
It's like right off the bat, dude.
Oh, okay.
Like that's kind of seems to be in a way almost the theme of the game is like we're in this world where like everyone's happy, like the wild animals and the people play together and all this stuff. And then these outside parties just come in and people just start dying. Houses start getting burnt down. Like just, they've equipped like robotics onto a freaking caribou, and now it wants to attack people.
Well, that sounds quirky again.
Yeah, but it's still like it's like this crazy, like it's really like genuinely funny and quirky and like deeply tragic at the same time.
Cool.
Yeah, like I saw a scene and like I think today where I think you as the player know the outcome of this storyline, but the characters that were trying to resolve it may never find out what actually happened.
Too sad. That's too sad.
Yeah. So, and I'm just starting chapter 2. Like, it's kind of craziness. And the other thing that's really different compared to Earthbound is like this is 100% Ness's story, and you pick up your party along the way. You meet a lot of characters along the way, and it is very much everybody's story, but it's centered on Ness. Like Ness is your playable character.
It's you. It's like your favorite food and all that.
Yeah. Whereas in this, I'm on like protagonist number 3 now. So like you get like a little bit of a prologue where you control Lucas, and you go through some kind of like play battles and stuff like that. And then chapter 1 is about Lucas's father, Flint, and this forest fire and everything is like, and the father was in town while the rest of the family was like off visiting the grandfather. And so like you were trying to find your family as Flint. And now I'm with a totally different character who was introduced in chapter 1 named Duster, who has apparently been like training all his life to be a thief, and whose father is like, all right, you've got to go infiltrate the castle and find a thing in there. And like, as a thief, you'll know what it is. Like this thing that I've hidden in the castle that nobody knows about. And so now I'm in the castle, and the castle is like brutally difficult. I'm like fighting against ghosts that make you nauseous, so you can't eat any healing items.
Cool. Slimers.
Sort of, yeah. They literally look like sheets. Like these ghosts.
I always like the style big time, and I think in Mother 3 it's perfected. I don't like the style of Mother 1.
Right.
And Earthbound,
yeah, the
Earthbound
sprites
is like,
couldn't
okay.
really pull it off on the NES, right?
Yeah. And so whenever I see images of 3, I'm like, that looks really good.
Yeah. Everything looks really good. Everything, like the cutscenes and stuff, are pretty well animated. Oh, when you're with the dad, you also get to get the dog Boney in your party, and the introduction to that character is amazing.
But we all know Boney's gonna die.
I don't know.
Blood, you said this is a tragic game.
Yeah.
I'm telling you right now, prepare for Boney's death.
Yeah, at this point, I should prepare for anyone's death. But yeah, the other thing that's really interesting, and chat clued me in on it like long before the game actually, because the game doesn't tell you anything about it until Chapter 2. But there's a thing with the combat system that is just kind of insane but really fun. Is you hit to the beat of the song to get extra damage. And so like you hit it, so basically like you lay out your commands. So you say, this character is going to attack that character. Then when the prompt comes up that says Flint attacks monster or whatever, then you start hitting the button in the rhythm. And if you're hitting it in the right rhythm, you'll get bonus hits. And so you'll start off with like your main hit is like 55 damage, and then your bonus hits will be less. So you'll get to like 11, 12, and then it'll be kind of random toward like 1, 8, 7, 1.
It's still a lot to stack on, man. That's crazy.
You're stacking on extra damage.
Yeah.
And you can get up to, if you're really good at it, you can get up to 16 hits.
Wow.
And so it can make a huge difference in terms of just survivability, because at this point I don't have any kind of like healing power. I'm like completely dependent on eating bread and cookies and beef jerky and stuff like that. And but what makes it such a crazy mechanic is Mother 3, like Earthbound, constantly switches up battle music.
That's what I was going to...
Your battle music is changing, and like pretty much any time you come across a new enemy, like there's a fair chance it's going to have a song that goes along with that.
Cool.
And Duster makes this even crazier, because Duster has this hypnosis ability, and while they're sleeping, you can hear the actual, it like amplifies the beat of what you're actually supposed to be hitting to. So you can actually learn what that rhythm is. And they explain it as being the enemy's heartbeat, as what you're actually matching up to.
Cool.
When they're asleep, you can hear their heartbeat more easily, and that's how you learn like what the rhythm is.
Yeah.
And a lot of the ones earlier, it was just I kind of equated it to doing like bomb jumping in Metroid, or like the Mario Odyssey jump rope thing.
Yeah.
Where it's like, okay, I just got to get like this tempo. It's like tap tap tap. Now in this like Ghost Castle thing, I'm getting things where like you've got to go bump 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 bump. Bump. Like it's not just like a steady thing. It's like you actually like have to like hit like a series of beats.
You have to hit it 3 times for the bump?
Yeah.
Got it. Cool.
That is very cool. Because it's happening in every fight, do you kind of get tired of it at a certain point? Just trying to be so on top of the rhythm with all of these attacks?
Well, it's one of those things where you never feel like you quite get it down. It's like, all right, I've got it. I've got 16 hits on this guy. I got 16 hits on this guy, and like, whiff. Okay, try whiff. Nope, don't got it. So it's definitely one of those things that you don't quite master. And some of the people in the chat were saying like they never got above 3. So me even getting to 16, it's like I feel like I've accomplished something.
Kind of a cruel mechanic for a handheld game too.
Sure.
It's like you need to have your volume up or with headphones on for this.
Yeah. Blood, maybe not just from a story perspective, but just kind of from a stylistic flavor perspective, or from a mechanics perspective. Do you feel like there was any huge benefit coming into Mother 3 after playing Mother 1 and 2, or is this an entirely different beast?
It's definitely its own thing. There are some I just saw a building that was absolutely a throwback to Mother 1.
Cool.
And so there's those kind of things you can pick up, but the story itself is pretty standalone. I think I mean, I haven't actually gotten to this point in the story yet, but I'm pretty sure that like the main villain is a crossover from Earthbound, just from like what we've seen in Smash Brothers and all that stuff. It's like okay, yeah, we know that guy. But yeah, I don't think otherwise that there's gonna be that much story crossover. I think it's pretty much its own thing. So systems and stuff like that, I do think it kind of helps to have some of that familiarity, but again, not necessary to where like if you did want to jump into this first off, you could do it. Yeah.
And you're playing a fan translation of Mother 3.
Yeah, that's the only way to really.
Right.
You either play a fan translation or you're playing Japanese.
Right.
So.
How is the quality of that fan translation?
It's been good. There's been definitely some swear words thrown in here and there. Like Nintendo probably wouldn't do that, but yeah. But there's
That's funny.
There's some crazy stuff in this game, anyways. Which some people have said like maybe that's why Nintendo avoided it because there are these characters I just met called the Magypsies, who I guess sort of like elves. They live for so long that human lives are just kind of like like why do you care about your 100 years, whatever. But they're like this like complete 50-50 like masculine feminine mix. Like they don't have a gender whatsoever. So it's like you have like these long shaved legs and then this big like fuzzy beard on a character or a big afro and so they're just like they're just meant to be incredibly weird and quirky. And
let us have those.
Yeah
Let us have them.
And what's funny is the character, the grandfather, he's in the party but he doesn't actually like he's not controllable. He was teasing Flint the way that they talked afterwards when they were like going through this cave. It's like Flinty Poo or something like that. So it's fun quirky weirdness.
Cool.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean it's always sounded interesting to me, and I've heard it's just kind of this legendary game. Someday I would like to get to that
I haven't got to that point to where I could corroborate, but like so many people are like trying to sell me as this is being the best JRPG they've ever played.
Yeah. I think part of me has always held out hope, especially once we got Mother 2 and Earthbound and Earthbound Beginnings on Wii U, that this was just inevitable. But that was a long time ago. So
yeah, I
don't know. Can't wait forever.
And also, Earthbound Beginnings was already translated officially.
Yeah.
So that was just sitting there waiting to be done.
It had there was so much smoke.
There's still so much smoke.
Yeah.
Not there.
This was the time when they were announcing this online. I don't know, man. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm losing hope. I think fan translation is where we're gonna end up. But where we're gonna end up right now is a very special place, a warm place. It gets so warm, you start sweating.
It's actually getting a little cooler, but yeah.
We're gonna heat it back up with the HOTTAKE.
Whoa.
And for the last episode with Brad and Huber, I picked a HOTTAKE that I cared a lot about, and I care about this. I'm not sure if you guys are going to care about this.
Okay.
And so sometimes you just have
I'll
to.
let you know.
Yeah, please do. Please let me know. Sometimes you have to do something and see what sticks. But Sony, and what I can only describe as arrogance has been getting to me a little bit.
Ooh.
And it's how they. This is a little old news. The internet moves fast, but it happened this month, and how they're coming out and responding to them not having crossplay on PlayStation 4, the way that other companies have had crossplay. I'm getting this information and this quote from a Verge article, but basically to directly quote this Verge article, Sony has been blocking crossplay and progression between Fortnite on PlayStation 4 and Nintendo Switch / Xbox One. While there were some signs that the company was listening to the feedback to its controversial decision, Sony CEO Kenshiro Yoshida has made the company's stance clear. In an interview with the Press Association at IFA last week, Yoshida claims that the PlayStation 4 is the best experience to play Fortnite. This is a quote from Yoshida. On cross-platform, our way of thinking is always that PlayStation is the best place to play. Fortnite, I believe, partnered with PlayStation 4, is the best experience for users. That is our belief. But actually, we already opened up some games as cross-platform with PCs and some others. So we decide based on what is the best user experience. That is our way of thinking for cross-platform. So basically, there's more to this article, but the key point is that you cannot play cross-platform with games that people really want to play cross-platform with, but you can on other consoles. And the response is, well, that doesn't matter to us because if you play on our platform, if you play on the PlayStation 4, it is the absolute best place to play.
Why would you want to play anywhere else?
I have feelings on this, but I want to get your take, Kyle and Bloodworth, on what you think. And do you think this is a big deal at all?
It is a big deal, obviously. I think that Kazurai would have answered that question completely differently.
Mm-hmm. How would Kazurai have done
it? Basically, I think that he would have had the same policy based off what's been happening historically. PC shaking hands with PC, PlayStation shaking hands with PC, but not caring for other consoles. But there's a way better way to message that to a larger gaming community, to people who haven't bought your console yet, and to people who own those consoles already. There's a way to be more, I don't want to say endearing, but less cruel about it in your language. I don't think the policy would have changed. It's just consistent with what they've done. The one thing they probably should change is the progress. I think crossplay is not going to happen. It's pretty whack that you can't move your progress around. I get why they do it. It's because they make a little bit of money off of all of your Fortnite purchases. Right. So if you go on PC and buy your Fortnite purchases and then just bring them on to their platform, they don't make any of that money for this free-to-play game that you could play without it even play a PlayStation Plus account. I get that. And that's the only way they make money off Fortnite, right? Is those microtransactions on their platform. But if your opponents are doing it, if your competitors are doing it, I think you have to acquiesce. I think you have to just let that slide.
Well, and my understanding of it too is you could have bought all this stuff on an Xbox, and then as soon as you connect that account to the PlayStation, it's you don't get to. You'd have
to make a new account or make all your stuff go away. Your progress, yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's the weirdest part about it is that that's not even necessarily stuff that people have bought on a PlayStation. Right. It's as soon as the PlayStation smells that account, this is ours. It's all of it. But yeah. So I think that's definitely I know Rick Hogue is definitely more up in arms about that than people actually playing together on the same servers and that kind of thing, even though that's also an issue for sure.
But the weird thing is it's not, they still have enough people playing Fortnite. There's still enough people who own PlayStations and enough people who own Switches and Xbox Ones. It's a nice thing to complain about for sure. It's a sucky thing that you can't play with your friends, right. But that is a minority of people. That there's still enough people who have friends on PlayStation who can still have a good time playing Fortnite on PlayStation that I don't think Sony is incentivized to prop up Xbox to their level, Right now Sony's beating Xbox 2-1, right. And for them to lend a hand and say, yeah, we're going to help you out too, I don't think there's enough reason for them to do it.
So
other than being a nice guy.
Do you think this is a bunch of noise that doesn't matter?
It matters. It matters. I don't think there will be change. If anything, I hope it's on those microtransactions. But again, that totally makes sense to me from a corporate perspective.
Right.
The best thing we can do is keep complaining. I think, Ben, you opened this by saying it was old news. Right. I think they're gonna weather out the bad news. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think they're gonna just keep. They'll take it.
Right.
They're going to say, complain about us on Twitter. We're not going to change. And then eventually people won't be mad anymore. I honestly think it's going to work for them.
Yeah. What this reminds me of is the story not all that long ago, the response they had to classic games where they're we just don't think people, essentially, we just don't think people care about this.
Yeah.
Well, and then this really, this wasn't a thing that blew up the way it did until the Switch, right?
Not until Fortnite.
That's what I mean.
Yes.
Yeah.
When Fortnite came on the Switch.
Right, because you couldn't do it with Xbox, but nobody really cared. But you're right. When you couldn't
I think
switch
that's
to,
the thing. And I think that's the sticking point, is that there's just way more crossover there of people that have a PS4 and want to play Fortnite in a portable,
Right.
and not on their phone. And all of a sudden it's like, well, I can't just use my same account. Why not? And I think that's the one thing to where I could almost, which I don't think anything's going to change now. I think they're sticking to their guns no matter what. But if I could see if any change happening, it would be on that front first, where they're like, we'll do Switch, and then Xbox will be the only one really left out in the cold.
For me, I have to wonder if it's eventually, in a very long game, death by 1,000 little cuts, because you're right. Sony beating Microsoft 2-1. I think the Sony stable of exclusives right now is just incredibly strong. But to me, when I kind of take a step back and think, yeah, that's awesome, and I love these games, but making strong exclusives that really captivate people's attention, that's a super hard thing.
Oh.
That is an imperfect formula.
The hardest one.
Yeah, that I think you're just kind of taking a swing at. And I just remember, like, during the PlayStation 2 era, Sony felt untouchable. Like, they were the kings. And going into PlayStation 3, it was ridiculous, especially in the early years, how far they fell. And honestly, so much of that felt like arrogance. And we just see things change all the time. The switch from the Wii U to the Switch is crazy. And so from my perspective, it's like, whatever goodness you got going on right now, why not make every effort to just push that lead even further? Like, why not be the company that has the best stable of exclusives and is making all of these conveniences for people that already like you? Like, why take this route? I just don't understand it. I can't think through it.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I get it right now. You don't need to do it, but why not? Why not do it? You totally could.
Like, is it going to be, Xbox is doing better than PS5, and then Sony is like, wait, we're going to do this now.
Yes.
Because now's the time to make it look good.
It absolutely will be that, yes.
But if this was
it will take.
Sony's first rodeo, like, I guess I would maybe be more sympathetic. But if you've already experienced so many highs and lows, why not just do it?
I think it's not important to them. I think that it would not effectively change their bottom line if they had suddenly allowed you to play with your Xbox friends playing Fortnite.
But in a way, that's kind of that's the reason of, like, well, why not? Like, how much is it going to hurt them? I think that's the question, is like, why is this going to hurt you in the long term, in the overall scheme of things?
Yeah, I think exactly. Blood, you should look at it that way, and Sony should as well. Is it's really how many Xbox users are going to buy a PlayStation 4 just to play Fortnite with their friends? A handful, right? Like, it won't be a lot. There aren't a lot of people who are saying, well, I can't play Fortnite with PS4 people. I gotta buy a PS4. But Sony is thinking that's what they think, right? That is thinking that is the advantage that they have.
Right.
When it's might not, that's not I don't know if that's anybody's frame of mind. They're buying it for Spider-Man. They're buying it for God of War, right? It's smart to invest in those things. That does affect their bottom line. It does create buyers. But I don't know if multiplayer exclusivity does create buyers. I don't know. They must figure it does.
I just think part of what makes this extra smelly to me is, at the start of this generation, the messaging that they had was very much that they were the console for the everyman, that they weren't doing the icky things that the other big company was doing.
Yeah.
We're going to let you play how you want to play. Like, people don't forget that, right? Like, I think it's not like, okay, you're on top now, we're going to forget how we got here.
Yeah, it's funny. It's so to me, Ben, it's like, it's the people who are most mad are I don't know. I don't like. Okay, all right. So you own a PlayStation, right? Your best friend owns an Xbox. You're mad as a PlayStation owner that you can't play with your friend who owns an Xbox.
Yes.
But I don't think it's the same. I don't think it's the same as like, hey, we're for the everyman. I like that message is kind of still there. Sony cares about PlayStation owners, and I guess it is like it is mean to PlayStation owners who can't play with other people, but it also is like they do not care about Xbox owners. They do not care about Switch owners. That's not part of the deal, right? When you spend the money, they're like, hey, yeah, we're not going to go babysit them too. You know what I mean? But I get that PlayStation owners in a certain way can have an expectation of being able to play in a larger online sphere. I get both. I totally get that.
I see what you're saying, where like this isn't the same thing as like, hey, you can borrow games from a friend. Right. It's not the same level of care amongst a large number of people. Yeah. But I guess from my perspective is going forward, there are going to be a lot of big decisions to make regarding the upcoming consoles. Yes. Let's say you make a bad decision. This other thing, I think, just twists the knife a little bit further
think you're right. Yes.
than it would need to. Mm-hmm. Where it was like, well, let's say, like, thinking ahead, whatever decisions you're going to make with a new console, like, let's generate all the goodwill that we can, so if we do make a misstep, we're not going to fall as far. Yeah. I don't know.
It's confidence.
It is. That's what it is.
Yes. It's arrogance. It's confidence. You're right. You're right to label it that way. But I think I can't see them losing the PS5 Xbox Scarlet fight. I can't see it happening.
Why?
So PS3 and Xbox ended up almost flat. If you look at total sales, say 360, right. Xbox 360 and PS3. And that was the biggest bungle, right? And Xbox 360 had a huge advantage of its online service. I can't see it, and its games, big time games exclusives and incidental exclusives were just huge and just running best on Xbox 360. I can't see Xbox finding that again in a new generation where their online is that much better and their games are that much better than what PlayStation has. And those are the two big things. And so even if PlayStation 5 doesn't have backwards compatibility, I think it will still beat the new Xbox.
Are you saying that in the sense that like these spaces have already been developed in such a way that it's probably not likely that they're going to fall behind as much as they did before? Right. And are you arguing that like Sony has a stronger stable of franchises?
Yes. And vision as an organization. 2-1, I don't think it'll happen again. Right. Right. They can lose ground, but I can't see them getting beaten.
Blood, do you agree with Kyle in that sense? Do you think?
I don't know. I mean, I think the biggest thing that, where I feel like I would agree with that is simply in the fact that I feel like the technology right now isn't making any gigantic leaps and bounds that we would expect for the next console cycle. So, the PlayStation 5 and the next Xbox, they're going to be essentially more powerful versions of what we have right now, architecturally. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's one of the reasons that PlayStation 3 was in just such a bad position was it was this really big, beastly thing that was hard to program for, that was hard to port games to, that was, like $200 more than the Xbox 360 and coming out a year later. Mm-hmm. So it was just huge setbacks. Xbox 360 had the lead on multiple fronts that PlayStation had to catch up to, and in some ways just couldn't because of the way that box was designed. Right. I don't see there being that huge of a difference coming up in this next generation. Sure. Now maybe with the stuff that we're seeing on the cutting edge of graphics cards now, the generation after that, maybe people will have very different solutions to try to, get some of those things in there. But I don't know. I don't know what it will take to have that big of a technological gap,
It's crazy to think we had a time where you could look at a screenshot and say, oh, that's a Dreamcast game, that's a PS2 game, right. That's a GameCube game. Like we had a time where you could identify a game. I mean, even like GameCube, Xbox is hard to tell the difference between those two sometimes. And so yeah, I'm kind of with Blood, where it's gonna be hard to identify a console's identity just from screenshots. I can't see them being that different from each other.
This just made me think of the Forza Horizon 4 demo, where when I am racing around in that world, I am just in awe of how good it looks in motion, the environments, the way that the car is interacting with the world itself.
Do you have a 1X, by the way?
I do have a 1X.
Cool.
I do, yeah. And that's what
so
I
that's
played
at
them
60
on.
frames per second. Even.
Yeah, it's looking so good. And then the people step out of the car, and the people just look so much worse than every other aspect of that game. It's just incredibly
stay in the
jarring.
car,
Right. And it's not that big of a deal because it's the most minor part of this racing game. But yeah, man, is it jarring when that happens and they're just interacting with each other. But anyway, thinking back to the start of the generation, it's funny how like things that were kind of promised never really came to fruition in the way that I think they were marketed as such. And like part of what I mean by that is the, hey man, when the game is downloading, like you're going to be able to play the game. Like that never really happened in the way that I was hoping for it to happen. Where
I don't trust it.
Well,
it says ready to start, and I'm like, nah, I'll wait.
I'll do it. Like I'll get in there. I mean, I don't do it that often. Full disclosure, but like the times where I have tried, I'll be like, oh, okay, it says I can play it now, and I play it, and I get in there, and like I click on it, like pretty much every option, it's like, no, this isn't ready yet.
Yeah.
And so there's no point. It's really discouraged me from trying it with everything.
And you know what I think was one of the actually good implementations of PlayStation Now that was advertised is you'll be able to try any game before you buy it.
Right.
I think that's a really good idea. Mm-hmm. They don't want to do that.
No.
They don't. They don't want to let it happen.
Yeah.
That was so
That's
cool. Just like take a game off a shelf, try it for 5 minutes. It's easy for them to cut you off because you're streaming it in. Oh man, to me that's like a no-brainer. You know,
PlayStation Now?
Still have not. No.
I've gotten really close, but I haven't tried it either.
It would need like an exclusive
try
game.
it without.
You got to buy it.
Yeah. That's the problem. I'm like, I'm not gonna like basically bet on this system to work.
Bet on your internet. Yeah, it's too nuts right now.
To bring it back around to this specific topic, we still see occasionally people bring up the fact that like you can't change names on PSN.
Sure.
Do you think this crossplay thing?
Oh, they said at PSX we would know.
Ben and I have a bet about this.
Oh yeah,
We do?
Yeah.
I don't remember.
It's
the bet?
It's about whether at PSX this year we'll be able to change our names or not.
What did I say?
You
and
said
now
you
they
will.
don't even say anything about having a PSX.
And I said you won't.
So does that fall to you if there's no PSX?
We got to go back.
I think
and
nobody
see how
would
we
win
worded it.
because it's specifically PSX.
Okay. What were
that
the
would
stakes?
Suck. So if I lose, obviously you can change your name, so you get to choose my name for a year. And if you lose, I get to choose your profile picture for a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh boy, that'll be fun.
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see. It might just stall out completely. It seems like.
Yeah. Where's PSX?
Where's PSX?
Ugh.
Anyway, do you think we'll be talking about this story in a month? Like, do you think people will still be up in arms?
It's
about
gone
crossplay?
a long time, man.
I think Ben. I think you nailed it. When like it'll keep bubbling up when another bad thing happens.
Right.
I think it's like on an imaginary list. It's in a list in a cloud somewhere.
Yeah.
Where when another thing bad happens, we catch that cloud and we bring out all the other things that were in that cloud. Absolutely. It's not enough on its own, but it could be enough in a collective of bad things. Absolutely.
Okay.
So if a bad thing happens in a month, yes.
Are you guys ready for some emails?
Yeah. Send them in.
Send them in. The email. Speaking of sending them in, I am so inconsistent about promoting where you can send emails into. AskEasyAllies@gmail.com if you want us to chew on your question. Once again, that email address is AskEasyAllies@gmail.com. Our first email is from Joven. I hope I pronounced that right, Joven. He says, "Hey, Allies. Game backup / pirated game monolith MU Paradise recently removed its entire game library due to potential legal action from Nintendo. On one hand, the site did host backups of games that many accessed, myself included, without owning the original game. On the other hand, the site also hosted these games that otherwise wouldn't be accessible by normal means. Arcade cabinet emulation, and unreasonably priced second-hand Nintendo classics." I think the one Huber likes to bring up is the Alien vs. Predator beat-em-up.
Yep.
Nintendo's actions are understandable. However, I can't help but feel somewhat let down that a website that was a shining beacon for game preservation has no choice but to close its doors when Nintendo isn't making a transparent effort to showcase the many titles in its glorious history. The more we move forward the harder it is to look back at these classic or obscure games through legal means. I can understand the hesitation to answer this question, but I'd be interested to hear the panel's take on the situation and the future of game preservation. Do we see a viable legal solution to this problem, or will these lesser-known games be lost to time?
Hurts, man. I hadn't played games until recently when I was streaming that have English translations. Like, Blood, you're doing Mother 3 with an English translation right now. Those ROMs, you need those. They got to be somewhere, right? Like, even if, so I did, I buy a hard copy of those games just because I'm streaming and make it, as ethical as possible.
Yeah. I mean, my translation's on a Game Boy cart and I'm playing it on a Game Boy player.
Whoa. Well, that's highly illegal. Somebody's making money off that. Whatever.
Well, I think it wasn't originally the Japanese, but yeah.
Oh, like you buy the Japanese cart.
And then they flash it with the English.
That's cool. That's way cool. Actually, that's awesome. Yeah, this hurts. It hurts big time because Nintendo's so bad at it too. If their solution is their online NES service that you have to pay to have access to and it goes away when you stop paying, that's bad. That's so bad. It makes me so frustrated. Obviously, I know piracy's bad. Nintendo could have easily overlooked this one. They easily just could have let this happen as they have been without losing a dime. Oh man, but it's frustrating to me. It really is. They're following the law. This is the way the law is written, and it's all legal. But it's just such a bummer because you're losing games. Games are disappearing because of the law, because of licensing.
Just trying to play devil's advocate here. Nintendo has just been so slammed by piracy in the past. I think specifically during the DS era, when you look at the numbers for how much certain DS games were pirated and how easy it was for people to do.
And it's only a matter of time for the Switch.
Right.
Yeah.
There's an understandable animosity there, and
but those aren't ROMs. Those aren't ROMs. You know what I mean? Like,
that's true. That's true. That's a good point.
Oh, yeah. Ben, that is their state of mind. Nintendo hates piracy. They've said it many, many times.
Right.
They want to kill piracy.
Yep.
It's frustrating for them, and they're killing the wrong pirates.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely...
Yeah, I think I agree with that.
I've definitely done more of a turnaround in this in recent years because I would definitely... there have definitely been times where I've emulated things for whatever project just to get familiar with them. But in the past, I think I'd always come up against these things where I would get these comments when something would get re-released and they're like, "Oh, this is really cool," and and you just get this snide remark like, "Well, you can just you can get all of that. I got all of that on my PSP already," and like to me that kind of thing of like, oh, I don't have to pay for it. Why would you pay for it? You're a stupid idiot for paying for it. That always rubbed me the wrong way for years and years and years. Because it's like, yeah, if you have an option to pay for it, you should pay for it. But now as I've seen more and more colleagues and have been to talks to GDC and stuff about the huge problem we have with actually preserving these things in any kind of way that people can play them. It is becoming very clear that something needs to be done, and right now, like online free emulators is the only option that we have, and has done a lot of work to keep a lot of these games from disappearing. So it's super weird and difficult to figure out. It's because any other medium, you would just go to the library. Right. It's like we need the 21st century equivalent of the library for video games to be able to do this kind of thing. And it's like libraries, they have physical copies of games, they have physical copies of movies, but it's just not enough to like cover the whole breadth of anything that would be available.
Blood, I kind of love this though. We can find a legal justification, right, to load, let's say, Aliens vs. Predator, the arcade game, into like this government-owned streaming library, right, where you can't play the game anywhere else, right? You can't download it and put it on your own stuff and sell it and repurpose it. So it's like this one website, this really cool government library, where you just go and stream games. How sick would that be?
That'd be wonderful.
I wouldn't necessarily think it would have to be government, but non-profit, obviously.
Yeah. Well, because there's this tension between wanting to keep access to these things and the companies not wanting their properties to be taken advantage of. And I think to the Wii specifically in the Virtual Console, because that Virtual Console to me was the most aggressive Nintendo ever went on any of its platforms to getting the largest amount of stuff.
Yeah.
And for them, there's this fight between, keeping their own thing and providing games and trying to make money off of them. And so I wonder if we've never really seen anything to that level just because they didn't see the return. And I think at the end of the day, if just the volume of interest isn't there and how much of a problem that is.
Yeah, because I think that's fine. Hey, if you're not interested, I get it.
Right.
You're not going to make a lot of money in for the frog the bell tolls. You know what I mean? If you put that out, but to go and attack it, that's where I get mad. That's where I get frustrated. Is hey, you're not interested. That's fine. But then to also say, but you can simply not own that game, bums me out beyond belief. That's too much.
Yeah,
I agree with you.
Again, you're talking about things like licensing. There's just so many games that are in this deep black hole of who owns that. Does the person that owns that even care?
No one lives forever is what immediately comes up to mind with that.
Yeah.
Something like Jaws on the NES.
play
if you
that
just
game
wanted to
so
try
bad.
out Jaws,
Yeah.
you're not going to be able to do that. That licensing's not going to happen.
Kyle, do you have any faith that there's some sort of long game here where, yes, we just have this online service with NES games? Is there any crumb of faith that it's going to get any better?
No, I think Nintendo proved this week that they don't know that their design, Ben, because they're selling those NES controllers, they're just gonna drip this. They're gonna sell Super Nintendo controllers, and we'll have to act to be surprised. And then maybe some freaky N64, will there just be some like N64 thing that you snap onto the side of your Switch? That's just, it's so smart of them. They're gonna make so much money doing this. There are so many 30 to 60-year-olds who are really excited to stream NES games through their Switch. And it just...
Those damn 30-year-olds.
Yeah, man, I just... Oof.
I like it, though. I like the anger.
I didn't know I was this angry. I didn't know I was this angry until you popped this email in.
Good.
But,
that's what they're here for.
There's so much joy to be had in old emulated games that there isn't any money to be made from. And so I
think you've just hit on this with your stream specifically. I think about the second Pokemon trading card game.
Yes.
I think... For Whom the Frog Tolls? Is that what it's called?
For Frog the Bell Tolls, or for the Frog the Bell Tolls? I'm not
Okay.
sure which one.
And then Terranigma as well.
Oh, yeah.
And Mother 3.
Hearts.
Okay. All right. Well, this should hurt a little bit less.
Cool.
Discovering classics for the first time. This is from Joe. Hey, allies. I never played Shenmue or Shenmue 2 before. I was a Nintendo kid and later added Sony consoles to my gaming repertoire, but the Dreamcast was one console I skipped. Largely due to Huber's enthusiasm for the series and in anticipation of Shenmue 3 coming out this year, I picked up the PS4 Shenmue collection. As it turns out, these games are pretty neat. My thanks to Huber for his hype, without which I probably would not have discovered how good these games are. My question is, what games or movies or anime or series did you completely miss out on during their time on the spotlight, only to discover and fall in love with years later? Whether you read my question on the show or not, please pass along to Huber how much I appreciate calling my attention to these games.
Cool.
I will try to remember to let him know. What are things that you did not appreciate in their time?
I'm sorry, I want to add one last addendum to the last question. In that it does feel really good to buy old games. It feels really good to buy support old game stores. That's a good feeling. So if possible, you should. I understand that's not always possible. Go ahead.
Oh, I recently, we have a gameplay nearby, and I've gone there for I don't know how many years, but I was in there looking for something else, and I was like, "Hey, do you have any like Wario Game Boy games?" And sure enough, they had one. I was like, I got that, and like, okay,
Which
what about
one?
what I think it was 3.
Okay.
Oh yeah, those are good games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then what about? And I was like, oh, about Super Mario Land, and they had one, and like I haven't tested it out yet to make sure it works because it doesn't even have a label. It's just like it's like a blank cartridge that has a sticker on it that says Super Mario Land.
Feels good to buy it still.
Yeah.
So when you pre-ordered Wind Waker, you got a disc with Ocarina of Time on it, and I was like, okay. And then I put it into my GameCube.
The Master Quest.
And loved that game.
You had not played Ocarina of Time before?
No.
Wow.
And so I hadn't played a Zelda. No, I'd played Link's Awakening actually by that point.
Okay.
But yeah, that Link's Awakening DX was the only Zelda game I had played leading into this. It lowered my opinion of Wind Waker. So, like, having played through Ocarina first, right? And then playing through Wind Waker later, like, Wind Waker's a great game, right? But
right.
It just felt so empty.
Just the back-to-back.
Yeah, it's like, wait.
Sure. I love Wind Waker.
Did I like the N64 game better? And, you know, you're a teenager and, like, that doesn't make sense to you. It's, like, a moment of discovery. Absolutely. Like, that game was, like, years later in the GameCube era is still really sick.
This happens to me all the time just because growing up, especially when digital distribution was not a thing, like just my access to games was so much smaller.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so there are a ton of instances of like I didn't own a Super Nintendo until I was like in high school, or until I was in high school. And so there were a bunch of things like I had played Link's Awakening and loved that. Like I played that as a very young kid and just adored it, and Ocarina of Time. But I didn't play Link to the Past, and I came to the two games that really stick. There are a bunch I could list. The two games that stick out to me that I did not appreciate in their time are Link to the Past and Super Metroid. And like by the time I had played them, I had heard so much, and just seeing them all the time on best game ever lists. And to me, even years later, even much older, they are some of the best games that I've played. Those two specifically. But yeah, there are a bunch of examples. I think the other thing as a kid that you realize when you get older is like you just don't play things the same way. Like I just didn't have the patience as a kid that I do now. And
for sure.
Like, the way that I approach games and the way that I play them and the way that I'm willing to like see them through or to like give them more of a chance definitely happens now more than it did when I was 10, obviously. So yeah, but what are specific games for you, Blood?
Yeah, I mean, like you, I feel like this happens all the time.
Yeah.
One of the cool things is, one of the Patreon tiers we have is, Blood Pact. And because the people that were in that group when it first started, there's like even a whole category of, sometimes that people vote for the month of just Sega games, since I grew up with Super Nintendo stuff. And
we were the exact opposite.
I'm trying to think. I played Kid Chameleon. I played original Phantasy Star one time. There's been quite a few.
We had this. I had this conversation with chat when I was playing Freedom Planet because it reminded me so much of Rystar. And it's just not a game that I hear about too often. Have you guys ever played Rystar?
Is he a star?
He is a star.
Totally a star.
Seen the box art, did not play.
Okay.
I've done like
I think you guys
bare
would
minimum
really
of
like
capture.
Really?
Yeah. I've had it on the polls. It hasn't gotten voted in before, but
granted, I
Vote for
haven't
Rystar.
played it in years and years and years.
Yeah.
But I remember
I've heard it's super good.
Yeah, I remember thinking very highly of it.
But we were just talking about Earthbound, of course, and like that. I just played in the past 2 years for the first time.
Yeah.
And Half-Life 2 was one that I didn't have the PC for when that came out. And so once I got a gaming PC, that was like on the list of things like, okay, this is gonna happen. I'm playing Half-Life 2.
What did you think about Half-Life 2?
I thought it was fantastic.
Okay.
Yeah, it was very. What year was it? It was like 2011, 2012, I want to say.
Okay. And that game came out 2004? 4?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. There's a big gap there. And you loved it.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I played through. So Half-Life 2 is a game for me that I played when it came out, and I adored it. I thought it was so fantastic. Like, I still there are a handful of games where it just feels like that perfect experience where like you don't care what anybody else says, just for you in that moment it was magical, but it's also like an experience that you want to protect. I have purposefully not played Half-Life 2 since that, not counting the episodes of course, but just like the base Half-Life 2 since that time when it came out because I was worried that it would detract from those memories. So it's so encouraging to hear that like you loved it and it holds up for you, because it doesn't seem like, Kyle,
Not for me.
you didn't have that experience. When did you play Half-Life 2?
Shoot, I think I played it on my laptop in 2012 for 13.
I mean, maybe this is a silly question, but did it run okay?
No, my laptop could not run games well.
Yeah, that probably had something
Well,
to
that's
do
not
with
fair.
it. For me, I was actually surprised at how well it held up. Like, I thought it still looked really good for being an older game.
I remember it was my stupid iMac, which could run games. The one I would have used, like it was one of those that's just like it's a screen and computer all in one.
Yeah.
I used to have one of those, and I would edit.
Still not trusting you on this.
No, it ran okay on that thing.
Because I never played the Xbox version, the original Xbox version, but I heard really bad things about that version. So
Yeah.
I didn't know if you played it on there or not. Are there other games?
Yeah, I mean, when you go through your streams, absolutely. I think that 4 out of 5 games the community suggests I turn out to love.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it might be that ratio, maybe 3 out of 5. But just some of these games that I have no awareness of, and it's just fun to share games like that with people. It's really, really cool.
Oh yeah, Symphony of the Night I actually didn't play till way later. Like, and it was a dumb thing too because I had gotten it not that long after I got a PlayStation, which was probably around 2001 or so. Yeah, I probably got the game in 2001 and maybe poked at it.
Yeah.
And then it sat on a shelf, I think, until it came out on like Xbox Live or PSN, on like PS3 or 360 or something like that. And then it's like, well, I can just go play that right now on my PlayStation. I don't need to.
Yeah, Symphony of the Night is a weird one for me because by the time I really wanted Symphony of the Night, finding the PS1 disc was impossible. Like used game stores, I would go in and I just never found it. I did eventually get my hands on a PS1 version of it. I don't remember exactly when it was, but I'm pretty sure that was my first encounter. It might have been on 360.
Hard, right, though, to be young and see a 2D Castlevania and pick that one over a game where they're like 3D.
I think
it's really hard. If you were like young in that era, it's hard to like pick that one.
Yeah.
I actually think my very first experience with Castlevania was the second N64 game that I rented it and I thought it was just atrocious. Legacy of Darkness.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think
I saw somebody tweeted out some magazine clips from some official Nintendo magazine. I don't know what country it was, where they were talking smack against Symphony of the Night because
it was two-dimensional?
Yeah.
Really?
And the N64 Castlevania games were 3D and had all this real-time lighting and everything.
But that's the thing, we bought into that. We absolutely it was the new exciting thing. We bought in for sure.
I don't remember a time where that was a reasonable argument. Like maybe I just missed it, but
it was like a reasonable advertisement is what I mean. You know, like marketing-wise, that stuff worked. I think being a kid and just kind of being away from those arguments, there was kind of this, if I liked a series, I was willing at that point, there was not a skeptic bone in me. Like I was willing to jump on board with whatever direction they went into. Like I didn't even blink when Mega Man went into 3D, and I ended up really enjoying Mega Man Legends. Yeah.
For as much of it as I could get through as a kid, but yeah. Other things, Thousand Year Door is a big one for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like such an idiot for not playing that game sooner. That game is so good.
But like, you understand why you wouldn't. You understand why a person wouldn't play that game. You know what I mean? It's just hard to get them into. It's hard to pull people in for that.
Well, it's just hard. I mean, you can't just like go to Walmart and get a copy of Thousand Year Door and play it on a contemporary system, which sucks.
Mm-hmm. Sucks.
That really sucks.
Yeah.
Kyle.
Wait till the GameCube controllers just slide onto the side of your stick.
You can only get it if you sign up for the service.
Ugh.
Yeah, there's mini games. I could go on here. My initial experience with Chrono Trigger was Final Fantasy Anthology.
Me too, dude.
On the PS1.
And that one held up.
Sorry, no, it did not on that. Not on that
It was all I
PlayStation
had.
disc.
It was
all I
really good.
had.
It had anime
And I loved
cutscenes.
it. Yeah, it did have anime cutscenes.
And
The loading was the
What did it
problem.
come with? What Final Fantasy?
Final Fantasy 4. Also my first experience with Final Fantasy 4.
Yeah, so I bailed on it. I started 4, bailed on it. It's like, all right, let me see the Chrono Trigger, and loved Chrono Trigger. I think Chrono Trigger holds up
I
better.
really like Final Fantasy 4, but
Yeah.
I mean, you put almost anything next to Chrono Trigger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was an interesting package. That was really cool, actually, the Final Fantasy anthologies.
Those anime cutscenes still like.
You think
I
a
love-
frog cutting the mountain in half?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely, I think a frog cutting it in half.
It's so cool, Blood.
It's so cool.
I mean, yeah.
How can you deny it?
And I understand where he's coming from.
Because the technical, it
Yeah.
did not hold up. And I also, I mean,
the loads are bad.
I appreciate definitely like going back to that game and seeing those cutscenes, but at the same time, I feel like it sort of takes away from those moments, like the original moments that were there a little bit.
How dare you?
I mean, this is probably how people feel when I talk smack on Twin Snakes. It's just I didn't know any better. You know, I didn't have the SNES cart, and so it didn't feel jarring or it didn't take away from the moments.
But this is also original character artist Akira Toriyama.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean,
This is the original vision.
well, I don't know if it's the original vision.
It's the original vision. They wanted to play anime cutscenes on the SNES cart, and they just couldn't figure out how to ram them in, so they put them in like this closet.
Or actually, Chrono Trigger, I think, was originally supposed to be a CD game.
Really? So I was making up trivia. This is a true thing?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was just in Chris Kohler's article where he just detailed the history of all the crazy stuff. Because there's a lot more to that whole Super Nintendo CD thing than people really know.
Wow.
Secret of Mana is also super chopped to bits.
So where do we go to read this?
Yeah.
That's on Kotaku.
Kotaku, cool.
Okay.
It's like the secret history of the Super Nintendo CD attachment or something
I
like that.
saw the headline, and
I don't even think I saw this headline.
Blood, you sold that headline way more than the headline did. You know what I mean? I'm way more interested in the
we gotta
article.
post
Well,
this
because
stuff
it's
on
like
Slack.
half the stuff that you think you know about it isn't even true.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right, I'm
Cool.
in. I'm in for that. Big time.
Blood.
Thank you,
dig
Chris
up that
Kohler.
link. We need it. All right. Our last email today is a lengthy one, so buckle in.
Okay.
It's from Victor. Feeling overwhelmed by RPGs. Greetings from Brazil, allies.
Yeah.
With the much anticipated release of Monster Hunter World for PC, I've realized one thing that made me slightly upset. As much as I love big RPGs, the newest releases are making me feel more overwhelmed than ever. I've skipped Monster Hunter on PS4 to play it with my friends on PC, but now I just don't have the energy to go through the learning curve and dig deep into all of its systems. That's been a recurring theme, as much of my backlog consists of RPGs. This includes Final Fantasy 15, Persona 5, Ni no Kuni 2. Even Octopath Traveler makes me anxious when I start thinking about going through 8 different stories with different characters and mechanics. With games like Dragon Quest XI and Kingdom Hearts 3 on the horizon, I cannot help but feel a little part of me dying because I am missing out on grand adventures, memorable characters, and epic monster hunts. Most of these games require a level of commitment that I feel I don't have at the moment. However, an interesting thing happened this week. Out of the blue, I decided to try out Dark Cloud on the PS2. Shout out to Brad. A game I've only played the sequel of when I was a teenager. But by today's standards, the gameplay is rough and the story is very silly, but somehow it makes me want to go back and play more. The mechanics like town building and weapon fusion are quick and easy to learn, and the game has a structure that works well with casual play sessions. This made me think that maybe it's all a matter of having the right RPG to play at the right moment. And the game may happen to be a janky 18-year-old action RPG. That being said, I want to know from you guys, have you felt overwhelmed or intimidated by RPGs you really wanted to play? And can you remember any RPGs you enjoyed that were deep yet accessible? Thank you so much for creating amazing content. I love and respect every single one of you. Wish you all a fantastic day.
So which was the game that really set this person off to say, I'm sorry, that's too complicated? Is that in there?
He started with Monster Hunter World.
Oh,
for
yes.
PC,
Yeah.
But then said, like, hey, my backlog has a lot of RPGs in it, including Final Fantasy 15, Persona 5, Ni no Kuni 2. And even Octopath Traveler, just by playing through 8 different stories, that making him anxious.
Yeah, so I can see where Monster Hunter would be intimidating, and I you do have to spend some time to learn Monster Hunter.
Yeah.
But the 2 upcoming ones, Dragon Quest, come on, you can set that on auto.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about mechanics too much for that.
No,
and
I
Kingdom
agree.
Hearts,
I think Dragon Quest XI is very
and
accessible.
Kingdom Hearts as well. Do not worry about it. Just put it on easy. Boost your attack. Go all the way in on an attack. You're good.
I see where you're coming from, Kyle, but I think that still remains that, like, you know, I've dumped, I think, like 83 hours in Dragon Quest. Like, I'm still doing stuff in Dragon Quest 11 to see the story all the way through. It took me like 78 hours. Like, yeah, it's not necessarily difficult, but it's still a lot of time.
Yeah, the commitment in there.
And I think with Kingdom Hearts 3, you have a considerable amount of time, and it's like, well, okay, what do I have to go play all these other games?
Ben, do you think if you were playing Dragon Quest on easy, it would have been fewer hours?
Well, I mean, I pretty much... There is no difficulty setting. It's just like these modifiers that you can turn on to make them harder.
Yeah.
But I just played without any of those modifiers.
So on a regular difficulty, it takes that much time. I get it.
Well, yeah. I mean, yes. If you want to see the whole story through, I guess is the way to say it, that's how long it took me. However, I was going out of my way to do a lot of side quests. I think you can probably do it in like 60, 65 hours.
But then it is so interesting that he goes around and loves Dark Cloud. I think this might be a case of vibes more than anything. You're just vibing off of Dark Cloud.
I mean, I do think it's true that games are just generally getting longer.
Yeah.
Specifically
Dark
RPGs.
Cloud's insane. Dark Cloud's got that like 100-floor randomly generated dungeon.
We're going to go to the definitive source.
Okay, all right, yes,
We're
please.
going to go to the definitive source.
Yeah, because I think Dark Cloud's like mechanics heavy. Like,
but I mean, Kyle, I think what's happening to you is what used to feel like a long time is now like almost short.
Yeah.
We're going to howlongtobeat.com for those curious.
What's it say for Spider-Man?
15 and a half hours for main story.
Yeah.
Okay,
right,
so Dark Cloud main story, 31 and a half hours. However, what I would say, just 31 hours.
Okay.
So main story, 31 hours, Dark Cloud. Main plus extra, 40 and a half hours, but completion is 42 hours.
It's that stupid temple. When my friend, he's like, yeah, and at the end, there's a 100-floor temple, and it's all different every time. I said, bye, dude, I'm never playing that.
But again, 40 hours,
right.
like Brendan was saying, it sounds almost...
You're only halfway through Dragon Quest.
Yeah,
right. So
now.
On Dark Cloud, it said, 42 hours for completionist?
Mm-hmm.
On How Long to Beat right now, and again, you know, this is a freshly come out game in North America, but on Dragon Quest 11, for completionist, what it says on howlongtobeat.com is 129 hours.
Oh.
You know, that's...
3 Dark Clouds.
Right.
Yeah.
And
that just
another game on his list, right, Persona 5.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of people that I talked to, including myself, just getting through the story and, you know, liberally getting involved with other things, it took over 100 hours.
Yeah.
Do you know what? We got to make fun of Metacritic. I think How Long to Beat is a resource. How Long to Beat is actually a pretty nice resource.
Is my favorite website.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's worth for the writer of this question to look at. I do it frequently. It's like, okay, like really how much of a commitment will this be?
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to do that. I don't think you're doing anything wrong is what I mean to say.
I also think it like gives you comfort. I think it's much easier to get through something when you have that mark in sight versus like, I don't know how long I could be playing.
Yeah.
It's just a port in the storm, man. But anyway, yeah. Do we have any answers for this?
I mean, the answer is for the final one, right? Or do you have any examples of games that are simple to learn but have deep mechanics, right?
Yeah.
Paper Mario is there.
Yeah,
Thousand Year Door
absolutely.
for sure, man. Like that, love that. But Final Fantasy 15 is on there. I don't think Final Fantasy 15 is complicated mechanically.
No.
I think you can get along, and Kingdom Hearts. I think you can get a long way in both those games just with your square button.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can have more fun if you get deeper in. But I think a lot of times, just playing through that Valkyria Chronicles 4 demo, a lot of times I think games think they're so complicated, and they become complicated in how much they explain and how much they pause and say this system is called this and this system is called this, when all of it's really natural, all of it makes sense.
Yeah.
And you don't need it explained this hard.
I think Xenoblade is the king of that, where all of its different names for all of its different things, when presented, can sound a lot more intimidating than they actually end up being once you dig in.
It's like I think psychologists should be employed. You know, just people like trained educators should be employed in video game design for those first levels, for those tutorials, because I do like it's a whole other mentality. It's a whole other field.
Yeah.
And I think people are teaching others how to play games the wrong way, and eventually you learn through playing, right? But just that off the top, I think a lot of games do a disservice to themselves in appearing complicated.
Yeah.
And I think like that's not a rare thing for this opinion of the writer of this letter to feel like, man, no, that looks crazy.
Yeah.
I do that to some games. I'm like, no, that looks crazy to a lot of games, like Divinity.
Sure.
I'm terrified of that. Just like, no, it's too much, It
is. It's a lot.
Yeah.
It is a lot.
Yeah.
But I think the thing for me, I feel like, I don't know, maybe my awareness of games was lower 7 years ago, but I think maybe because of that lower awareness, I had a sense of I was able to get through more, or maybe there just are more games now, which may also be the case. And I've gotten to this point where I'm okay with just making hard decisions of being like, all right, I'm not going to play any MMOs this year. That's a choice that I'm making.
Yeah.
I'm
not an easy choice.
Right. I'm not going to get super involved in any consistent multiplayer games. I'm just going to play single player games. I'm just primarily going to focus on RPGs. And like, I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's the thing for me is even making some hard choices, you're still going to be completely overwhelmed.
Yeah. And like the guilt, I get a sense of guilt from the letter, right. But the thing is, it's so beautiful you played through Dark Cloud.
Yeah,
that you
absolutely.
picked up Dark Cloud
that's
instead of those
message.
other games.
Yes.
That's a beautiful thing.
Yes.
I love moments like that.
Yes, I completely agree with you. In fact, I have to do that. I've noticed a pattern with me where I will get through a review and I'll immediately go into like a classic game. And I
Cool.
love that back
Nice.
and forth for me. It's been really nice. And just making a priority to stream older games that I've missed out on too has been nice. Blood, I'm sorry, you haven't really gotten too much of a word in here edgewise.
No, I mean, I think for me, it's just, don't worry too much about being intimidated. Just find a thing that seems to, like you were saying, you feel like you vibe with, and then just dive in head first and don't worry about whatever else you might be missing, because if you're doing a 100-hour game, then you're writing off 15 to 20 games for that month or 3 or 4. There's just, if that's the thing you want to try out, then you're going to be spending a lot more time with a single RPG than you would with a bunch of action games and such.
The last bit of advice that maybe would be helpful for Victor and to other people that I've gone through, and it's a pretty recent development, is that feeling of intimidation or that feeling of a game. It is the worst feeling, and this happens a lot with fighting games.
Oh, yeah. That's another big one, dude.
Where it will be like, this is this thing, and a lot of times when a game presents you with mechanics, you're like, oh, okay, and you'll fiddle around, it might take a couple times, but like you'll get it.
Mm-hmm.
The worst feeling is just that brick wall of where you're like, listen, I know you've explained this, I see other people do it, and there's just like, I see the beginning and the end, but I don't understand the middle, and you're just lost. And it's like you're in this sea, and there's no paddle.
Yeah.
I know what that's like. In fact, I experience it quite often. And what I've learned is I think the natural, immediate response to that is to just either run away from it or be like, oh, I'll come back, and then you never come back. What you have to do is you just have to be okay with being super uncomfortable. Yeah. Because it's just, I think it's just a process of not knowing, and that lasting for days, and then you just suddenly have that breakthrough.
Yeah.
And I get that not everybody has the time for that, but if something looks that interesting to you, if you care about it that much, it's worth that effort. And like, you're not alone. I think sometimes it's easy to internalize it and be like, I'm just an idiot. Why do all these other people get it, but I don't get it? Like, they went through it too, or they very likely went through it too. So, don't worry about it too much. I think that's going to be a frame trap.
It's a good letter.
It's a good letter.
Good few letters there.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that really got a lot of response out of us, which is good. Again, if you would like to send an email to us, the email address is askeasyallies@gmail.com. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Frame Trap. Thank you so much to my guest, Kyle Bossman, right next to me.
Thank you, Ben.
And Daniel Bloodworth right next to him.
Yeah.
Ben, I got good vibes from this podcast. I feel like we were just enjoying talking about video games.
That's it, man.
Yeah.
That's the whole point.
That felt pretty good.
Yeah. That's all I want in life.
I hope I didn't get too negative there, but you know.
You did not.
Sometimes it happens when you're in the middle of something.
Don't be concerned. Yeah, you did. No. Yeah.
No. The only thing that I want people to get from us is like, oh, hey, they like video games. That's
Sure.
it.
Yeah.
I'm not vouching for us as intellectuals. I'm not vouching for us as comedians.
Video game professionals. Like
Right.
we're not pros. We don't have pro strats.
Nope. No. We are absolutely not pros.
We're not esports ready.
No. I don't think any of us can claim that. We are better at some games than others, but yeah, like I really do think at the end of the day, like we like games. I hope that comes across.
Yeah.
I hope so. We're trying to be better at liking games too. Anyway, that's enough of that. No one likes that navel gazing. Until next time.